A nigga like me, man, I love the game. I love the hustle, man. I be feeling like one of them ball-playing niggas, you know? Like Bird, or Magic, or something. Yeah, you know, a nigga got dough. A nigga could leave the league. But if I leave, the fans still gonna love me, man? I get love out here in Harlem, man. I done sold coke on these streets, man. Hash, weed, heroin. As long as niggas is feeling it, a nigga like me can hustle it. That's my gift in life, eh? You know? What? The fuck you laughing at, B?
You, man. Funny, man. You a hustling motherfucker, man. For real, baby. You fucking killing me, man.
Well, you know me, baby.
What up? What up? What up? Back again. I want to address something, but before I do that, I just watched O'Shea's video. As soon as I saw it, I went and gave some money. You're gonna have to watch me. I got my little boy with me today, but come here, boy. But anyway, this is the thing. If you're not familiar, there's a YouTuber by the name of Charles Tyler. Charles Tyler is in my mind the Barry Gordy of black man YouTubing. Like he's done a lot. He pretty much started a lot of what you hear. Not in a, and I'm gonna say this about him. This is the thing. I was in his group. He had a group. And for those of you that don't know, he's passed away. He had a stroke. I was actually going to do a video on health because black men have the shortest lifespans. And there are certain things we need to do as black men because they say, health is wealth, which I believe that. You can be the wealthiest guy in the world. But if you can't walk, you on oxygen, and you got a short time on this earth, you give all that money away just to be 22 years old with a full bill of health. So as black men, we need to, implement as much health as possible, as much as we can, as far as doing everything we can by exercising. Even if you don't feel like it, light exercise is better than no exercise. I'm a big proponent of that. Like I played a lot of ball. I never really have been out of the gym for more than a few months throughout my whole lifespan. So for me, it helps to, if you do miss the gym, lightly go to the gym, hit the weights, run, exercise, do what you can. But as far as Charles Tyler, man, I went as soon as I saw the video from O'Shea today and went and gave some money to his GoFundMe. His body was in Brazil. He was in Brazil. He's one of the brothers that started, brothers get your passports. That's a video, type it up. I spoke with this brother a couple of times. Real nice, down brother, man. And O'Shea made a point about how when black men start businesses and black men try to do things that cater specifically towards black men, they don't support. And I do agree. I agree. I think when it comes to certain things, we don't support each other. We tend to ignore and, okay, he's going to spend his money. I'm going to come and patronize it. Not patronize it, but I'm going to come and participate. I'm going to come in. If it's free, black people, they'll come. But when it comes to spending money, no. It bothers me, when I heard the brother pass, because, I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm going to keep it a buck. I didn't agree with everything Charles Tyler said. I didn't agree with everything people said in the group, or because, people, were a lot of mean-spirited things they would say about black women, although some of it is based in certain truths, that we do need to deal with certain issues in our community. Still, man, I really hated to see, this situation happen to this brother. He's just struck down in the prime of his life, doing a lot of things. And he's one of the good ones, man. He's one of the ones that's about action. Whatever you want, whatever, I always talk about being about action and establishing ties and doing whatever it is that you're going to do, be it through networking, be it through business, however you're going to do what you're trying to do. You know, we as black men need to expand our horizons and start, you know, branching out and doing things and thinking, you know, worldwide. I've been to Brazil. I played ball down there, Dominican Republic. Yeah, I've been all over. Puerto Rico. All these was just playing basketball. And the DR I went to 50 times just to go kick it. But a lot of what he said, that's why he kind of struck. A lot of what he said actually stuck with me was because I've traveled. I've been overseas. I know what it's like. And, you know, I see the benefit of what a lot of these brothers are espousing. I'm not going to say it's all just bull. It's not. They are telling the truth in many regards. But, you know, God rest the brother's soul. I kind of hate, you know, ain't no counter in it. I hate to see his life cut short like that. You know, the brother was trying to do what he can, man, trying to learn how to do Forex, trying to do different things. So I just want to, you know, say my condolences to his family. I'm not doing this video. I'm not going to title this video to get clicks and put his name in the title, anything like that. But if you're familiar with it, man, that's a brother that you really need to go check his videos out. And you know, I'm really kind of sad to hear he passed away. Now I'm on to the subject of the video, which the subject of this video is, yeah, and I'm going to put a few clips in here about how black people have become the, you know, useful idiots for the white liberal. And what I mean by that is this. There's a bill in the country of Canada by the name of C-16. That bill is basically it's called the hate speech bill. Basically, it pretty much makes, if you say something someone doesn't like and they're offended, it's pretty much, you know, I don't know the specifics, but I do know that it's basically the hate speech bill, basically saying that it's making it a legal offense if you say something that someone doesn't like. And there's a guy, I think his name is Jordan Peterson, or some Jordan Peters, I don't know his name, white guy out of Canada. And he talks about transgenderism and its negative effects when you start telling a person that, hey, I'm not a he or a she, I'm a they. Like, you got ignorance. I tell you what, I'm just going to post a video right here of him being confronted. We'll try to chop it up and edit it as much as possible. But this is where we are. And I'm going to tie this to black people. But check this out right here.
I want to go talk to Peterson. Peterson, do you have any comments on the Nazi presence at your protest? The presence of Nazis and white supremacists assaulting people at your protest. Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, I don't like Nazis.
Then why were they here?
Well, how can I answer
Are there views in alignment with yours? At some point you have to realize.
That's a foolish question. Look, if you want to know what my views are.
I've watched all of your videos, yes.
Including
yes, I have.
Yeah. Then why would you ask such a question?
Because this is my interpretation of your videos.
Apparently,
all of the people who arranged the protest against you watched all of your videos.
It's like, do you want to disavow?
I have 150 videos on YouTube.
No, your lectures, which sparked the debate.
Okay.
Do you want to disavow the support?
Could you let me talk to her for a moment?
Don't call me that, please.
So, I have 150 lectures on YouTube. There's 500 hours of my views.
Do you really think that you're worth all of that time?
So look, I will answer your question, okay? I've studied Nazism for a very long time. It's been 4 decades, and I understand it very well. And I can tell you that there's some awful people lurking in the corners, and they're ready to come out. And if the radical left keeps pushing the way it's pushing,
very much like a
they're
threat.
going to come.
That sounds very much like a threat.
That
That sounds very much like a threat. Would you like to disavow the physical violence? Trans people were physically assaulted at this rally in your name. Would you like to disavow that violence?
Yes.
So you wish that didn't happen, and you want to, and I'm going to post this online, that you would like people to not to be more accommodating of trans people and people of color at your events in future.
I would like there to be no violence.
I'm a person of color, and I felt very accommodating here. I felt like my voice. Thank you very much.
I'm also former Muslim, and I feel like this guy is
I'm a person of color. There are many Muslims.
You wanted to disavow. You wanted to disavow, and this is the disavowal. I am not an advocate of violence. I'm speaking out the way I'm speaking out because I think this is a route to no violence. and violence is lurking, and you can say that that sounds like a threat.
There was
It's
no
not a
violence at
threat.
our protest, though. There was violence at your protest. So what does that say about our views?
It's not my protest. You know, asking me continually freighted questions isn't very helpful if you actually want to have a dialogue. You have no idea if I'm your enemy. You have no idea about me.
You won't use
nothing
my
about
pronouns, so I'm pretty sure you're my enemy, yes.
Yeah, well, I know you think that, but I don't believe that using your pronouns is going to do you any good in the long run. I think it'll do quite the contrary.
What the
Is that your medical opinion?
What, is that your medical opinion? Like, you are aware that non-binary people are valid in the American Psychological Association.
Is that your opinion?
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
It's about non-binary pronouns.
No, it's not.
Yeah, I'm saying that that's
Did
what
you
I'm
come to the
about.
rally? Were you there when I spoke?
I've been here for this whole thing.
Okay, well, I don't know that. It's a genuine question. Look, I think that's what's happening is that we're pushing over a line we shouldn't cross. The newest legislation is requiring people to use.
But you are aware that that's being put in place so that we can't get fired. We need to be written into the Canada human rights legislation, or we can be fired for our gender identity. Well, then why'd you make a fucking video about it? I've been denied housing as a trans person. These rights would protect me.
Denied housing?
I've been denied housing.
From the state or for the open market? So have you been denied housing, like, from the government?
It's illegal either way if we had human rights.
From the government?
I'm not
or have you tried to get a house like everybody else and they said, no, you're weird, you can't work? No, if the state's done that, that's a problem. But if someone doesn't want to live with you, that's their right.
They said, no, you're trans. Really so no, if I had human rights, that wouldn't have fucking happened.
Yeah, you're weird. I don't want to live with schizophrenic
As far as
people.
I'm concerned, that's a terrible thing. It's too bad that that's happened.
So you don't want us to, but you don't want us to have protections in the human rights bill that will allow me to have employment, allow me to have housing security, allow me to have medical care. That's what this is about. It's not about infringing on your rights or making you learn a new fucking pronoun.
I don't think that's what it's about. What evidence do you have that attempting to transform the way that people use pronouns is going to produce a positive effect on
Because
society?
are you aware that there is a trans boy who killed himself in psychiatric care recently because he was continuously being misgendered by his care workers?
And that is my precise problem.
And there have been multiple recorded instances of trans people killing themselves because they are not being integrated into society. We are not looking for special treatment. We are looking to be able to integrate ourselves into society. And if you refuse to refer to us by our pronouns, which is not allowed to ask, singular they pronouns go all the way back to Shakespeare. It's not a new thing. If you refuse to let us integrate ourselves into society, you create alienation that results in suicide. We are in a suicide epidemic right now. What are you contributing to this as a psychologist?
Man, you know, you're almost impossible to talk to. You're so full of rhetoric that it's impossible to listen to you. I would be more than happy to listen to you.
Yeah, really?
I was devoid of rhetoric. And I don't really think I am a rhetorician. Just so you know that. And you know, like, it's very hard to listen to you. I mean, it's very hard to attend to you
because
you rattle on in with your ideological speech.
It's not ideological. It's personal. That's what
It's not personal. You haven't said a personal thing.
I'm talking about something that affects my community.
It's just that when you say the things that you say, it tends, even if you didn't mean it to, it attracts people like neo-Nazis and fascists because they see an avenue in what you're saying to do what they want. Even if that's not what you meant, they see an avenue in the idea of like a more abstract form of free speech. They see an avenue in that to continue to spread their hateful ideology and to make more people hateful. So that's why the Nazis come here. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that's why that was.
I'm perfectly aware of it.
I have a calm, rational question.
Okay.
I won't get emotional with you. Who is this legislation harming? Who is
harming anybody who wants to use their own words?
So in what capacities? Be specific.
Look, it's important that people are able to use their own words.
Okay.
Because that's how we think. And if the government starts legislating how we think, and
so if I wanted to call you she,
are you going to legislate?
No, I'm playing off of what you're saying. If I wanted to call you she and her and miss, because that's my freedom of speech, and if everyone just called you that all the time, and that was the only thing.
Can't you tell?
I think that you don't care because you've never had to face that, and it's a common trend among people who have never had to face like transgender-related discrimination that you think it's not a big deal because you don't have to deal with it.
I didn't say I didn't think it was a big deal. I said I didn't care if people called me that.
Public institution, but it does prevent us from accessing healthcare. It does prevent us from accessing other services.
I'm not arguing about your rights.
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
These things about our rights.
I'm sorry, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you realize that right now, if you were to kill a trans person, because only for the sole reason that they're trans, that would not be considered a hate crime. Sure, they could be convicted of murder, but not of a hate crime. And that's what this bill...
in the States, they can use a transgenic defense in almost all of the United States and get off by claiming temporary insanity because they were freaked out by the trans person.
I am not claiming for a moment that people who don't fit into standard and traditional sexual categories or sexual identity categories don't face all sorts of trouble. They do. I just don't think that this is the way to fix it. In fact, I think
you do not think that a law that legislates protections from discrimination for trans people.
Not this way.
You do not think that.
That's right. I don't think.
Have you read the laws are intentionally worded?
Bring as many
most laws involving human rights.
Much trouble to as many people as possible.
What would we gain from that?
There is a conspiracy of intent.
I didn't say it was a conspiracy.
You think there is a concentrated effort behind these bills in order to specifically make the lives of people worse, and that's why we create human rights legislation to make it.
I think that people often do things to make other people's lives worse. Don't you?
Well, clearly, as an example of this rally.
I am probably the most fervent anti-statist you will ever meet. I am an anarchist, and I do not believe that anyone who writes legislation has the interest of anybody but themselves and their special interest groups at heart. So don't come at me saying that I want to suck off the nipple of the government, okay? Because that's not who I am. What I'm interested is in that people I love are being assaulted, are being killed, are being discriminated against, are being kicked out onto the street, are freezing to death in the winter because they're being denied shelter. And I feel.
But pronouns are too much to ask for you to show solidarity towards those people.
Can I just have a moment?
Sorry.
Look, we agree that this is a thing that's happening. We agree that it's a reprehensible thing that's happening.
Okay, sure, let's agree on that.
I mean, I don't think that would be controversial to most people. I mean,
I agree.
Apparently, some people think. Apparently, to some people, we're freaks because we can't have families or whatever. But what okay, whatever. Maybe that's not something you agree with. I don't know. I'm not going to put words in your mouth in that regard.
I agree.
What I fail to understand is how you honestly feel, in your expert opinion, as both an educator, as an educated person, that not calling somebody by a pronoun that has been used to refer to individual people.
No, I think it's legislating it. It's legislating it as a necessity that I have an objection to.
Okay, so if there was this legislation was not on the table, if this legislation fails, let's say, if this is removed, you would be totally fine referring to me with they them pronouns.
Probably not they and them.
Probably not they and them. Why is that?
Well, because I don't think it's a tenable solution.
I don't think it's what?
I don't think it's a solution to the problem that you're trying to solve. I mean, it's not. It's not that easy to track that. I know that's how you.
You were literally saying
you can make up a word and make that a child's name, and you would refer to them by that name. Why is it different for a pronoun?
Well, it's different because it's different.
No, it's just as
you were just asked.
It's different because it's a pronoun for a lot of reasons. So one of the reasons it's different is that pronouns turn out to be very difficult to change. They're closed linguistic.
Which is why we're using they them pronouns, which has historical continuity.
Yeah,
it is in the English language. It's in the Oxford English Dictionary.
It's nothing new.
As an educator, okay, hold on. Yeah.
You were asked, would you refer to me using they them pronouns? You said, no, I wouldn't. When asked why, you said, because I don't think it's a solution. When I brought up then it was basic respect and so on, what you said was, oh, I wouldn't do it if I was like coerced or whatever you said. Somebody literally just asked, would you do this for me? And you said, no, I would not show you that respect. I would not extend that amount of dignity to you.
That's not what I said.
Yes, you said
you said that you would not use they them pronouns for a person.
Nobody asked anything about if I came like with a club and asked you to like use certain pronouns to refer to me.
What makes you
I just asked, would you refer to me if it wasn't for this law and I asked you to refer to me with they them pronouns, would you? And your answer was no.
Not if I was compelled to.
But we're saying if you weren't.
You said no, and then when I started asking you about, you said it wasn't a solution. When you were asked, what is it not a solution to? You said something vague. We said it's about basic respect, and then you said not if I was compelled to. So no, when you were just asked, as a matter of respect, in fact, would you refer to a trans person who asked you to use they them pronouns, a pronoun which has a several hundred-year historical...
But that's not what we're talking about.
Yes, it is, because it's legislation.
We're saying if it wasn't legislation.
It's not legislation. I've got to stop, guys. Look, there's too many of you.
Okay, one simple question.
I've had enough. Sorry, I can't do this.
One simple question.
No, I'm done.
I thought we were statistically irrelevant.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I don't exist.
And a trans person asked you, would you please refer to me by they and them pronouns? Would you refer to them by those pronouns?
Might depend on how they asked.
So no.
Why do you have the authority to determine whether or not
Why do I have the authority to determine what I say? What kind of question is that?
Why do you have the authority? Let me finish. Why do you have the authority to determine whether or not an individual is worthy of you using their pronouns? Like, if I asked you, would you please use they, them pronouns for me? What?
It would depend on what I thought of your motivation.
What hoops do you want us to jump through?
Those are my pronouns. Those are my
There's no motivation.
No, I know. No one ever has any motivation.
We're trying to survive. Politics are a product of our lives and us trying to live in this world. We're not trying to live in this world as a product of our politics.
Do you want me to send you flowers?
I was apolitical before I came out as trans. I got into politics because I needed to survive, to advocate against people like you, no offense. I have one quick question. Okay, so they, them pronouns are written into the Oxford English Dictionary, the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. It's actually the word of the year this year. It does have historical continuity all the way back to Shakespeare. It is objectively an English word, singular they pronouns, grammatically correct. Do you think that you can choose to not respect something that is in the English language as a professor, as an academic,
Absolutely. I am choosing
you're ignoring rules of the English language to go out of your way to disrespect students?
That's your opinion, and I'm not going
to disrespect
students.
We're saying it's disrespectful
Anyway,
to our
You don't get to decide what's disrespectful to us.
Okay, now, the reason I put that in this video, is because I wanted to demonstrate something. The white liberal, basically, and I'm going to put that clip from Ann Coulter in there again. What happened? Black people came in. We fought all the hundreds of years. These homosexuals were nowhere to be found. You had a few, Bayard Rustin, we know, that fought Langston Hughes, but he wasn't really an activist per se. He was just part of the Harlem Renaissance, which was funded by the Jews to offset Marcus Garvey. But that's another story. And that's conspiracy. But there's some pretty compelling evidence to back that, what I just said about the Harlem Renaissance. But nonetheless, black people fought, did all the things they could do to get equal rights in this country. And whatever happened, there was this transition. As soon as the civil rights movement took place and took root and integration started to taking place, like Ann Coulter said, that movement was for blacks and blacks alone, because they were the ones that had been oppressed. We were the ones that had been dogged out, by the white establishment in this country, or as some people would call it, the white power structure, which I don't see nothing wrong with that term, because it just refers to the way the phraseology that refers to the way power is set up in America, which is probably predominantly in white hands. So check this out. I want you to listen to what Ann Coulter said about it. Again, I'm gonna put that back in here.
And Ann Coulter, you made kind of a provocative comment in your new book here, Mugged, and I think it's on page 151. You write that various groups, feminists, gay rights groups, and those who are defending immigrants have commandeered the black civil rights experience. Yes. What do you mean by that?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that, because I think it's one of the most important points of the book. I think the way liberals have treated blacks like children, and many of their policies have been harmful to blacks, at least they got the beneficiary group right. We do have to, we shouldn't. There is the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow laws. We don't owe the homeless. We don't owe feminists. We don't owe women who are desirous of having abortions, but or gays who want to get married to one another. That's what civil rights has become for much of the left. They dropped the blacks after 5 minutes.
Immigrant rights are not civil rights?
No, I think civil rights are for blacks.
See, this is the...
Okay, Ann Coulter just made a point. The white liberal, as soon as the black civil rights movement took place, here come the homosexuals, here come the humpbacks, here come the midgets, you got sick, twisted, like I showed you with these people fronting this guy at this university. Something's mentally, something's wrong with you. And they're trying to brush it off as well, they're just committing suicide because they're oppressed in society. It's society's problem that a man who's born a man who then wants to take hormone blockers and walk around saying he's a woman, and because he thinks that society doesn't accept him, he commits suicide. At least that's what they're trying to tell us. I think, no, you're mentally unstable, pretty much. Like, and I'm talking about family members I have that are in jail right now, but they're transvestites. I'll be honest. I got a transvestite in my community. I had one that would look like, not my community, in my family, that looked like a damn woman. Like, guys would come, my mom did hair. Guys would come in the beauty shop and try to step to him until he would talk. Because they would see him and be like, damn, who, they'll say their little thing. And, it's my mom's cousin. And literally, now I was probably like maybe in the, I don't know what grade, but I was in like maybe early middle school. And literally, I mean, he would be walking around with his hair permed down. And he would act like he's got his damn period on. So, I mean, he was just, but nonetheless, he's in jail for murder. They killed the guy. Not gonna go into the details, but they killed the guy and it was grotesque. But he wasn't round tight. He was not wound tight. This is my experience. I mean, my mom did hair, and a guy who is one of the best beauticians in the city was always, trying to say that, he was a woman or whatever. He actually would tell people that. He literally told my mom he was pregnant. We saw him at the Bronner Brothers hair show up here in Atlanta some years afterwards. And he told my mom he was pregnant. Like, these people are so delusional that it's not even funny. And it's really sad that it's like that. It's really sad. Like, these people are so delusional. They think that they're somehow able to be, they want you to play along with them and say that, hey, yeah, you're gay. I mean, not gay. You're a man. You're a woman. And the reason I say that we're useful idiots is because they get a lot of this stuff through under the auspices of the oppression that we faced. Real oppression, real things that we suffered. And black people have been useful idiots for the white liberal for, quite frankly, the last 50 years, 60 years. And it really pisses me off when I see stuff like this, because what happens, see, I understand there's a certain structure to a society. The nuclear family is the foundation of a community, which is the foundation of the whole city, state, nation. So when you start tampering with that, then you're talking about the downfall of a society. That's what you're talking about. And so that therein I have a problem with you trying to tell someone that gay marriage or gays are equal, not only gays, but I'm a transvestite, because it was a while ago, it was marriage. Now you want people to look at Caitlyn Jenner and accept and play along with his lunacy. He's crazy. Okay. You are crazy. You want to get a sex change, still be with women, but you wearing a dress and wig, and now you call me Caitlyn. Like, and people like ESPN and Sports Illustrated are giving them the Courage Award. And look, man, like this has become, we are pretty much their battering ram to culture, society, and it really pisses me off. And every time I hear them, like, I'm going to play a clip. They want to talk about slavery, and they use, like, these white liberals will throw slavery in anytime they want to pry into some new segment of society that, that is sacred or that is traditional, and they want to use us. And we're stupid. We're so dumb. We champion these causes for these people. They don't give a fuck about black people. They just want to use us to pry. And see, this what happens. I'm gonna say this. I was talking to Mr. Black earlier. He made a point. He was like, he was like saying, hey, this cheapens the black community. And it does. It cheapens our cause when every time someone doesn't like something, they say, hey, I'm oppressed. That's just like slavery. I want to slap the shit out of damn homosexual when I hear them start talking about they like us. Look, black, like Dr. Claus said, you are a special group of people, unique. Everybody else is an immigrant, unlike you. Now, I know they want to talk about the Indians. I don't give a damn about the Indian cause. I'm sorry, I don't. Like, the Indians pretty much supported slavery, and it would not have thrived as it did. In fact, per capita, they actually owned more slaves than whites did. So I'm not a big fan of Indians. And I think that's another thing. Black people want to always champion their causes. Colin Kaepernick, all these different people, black and brown, the Hispanics, they come hop. So let me tell you something. You in America, you in South America, Central America, your people ain't got nothing to do with slavery. All of a sudden you come hop the fence and you up there, you oppressed just like me. When my great grandfather was trying to start a business and they burned this shit down in the Red Summer of 1919 and burned down banks and businesses, and you want to get alongside me and lay claim to the same shit we've been through. And when I see black people that allow themselves to be these damn useful idiots, it really pisses me off. Really pisses me off. And see, that's the problem I have with the whole liberal movement. I despise it. It's not a lot of black people. See, this is the problem. This is just real. The liberal doesn't give a damn about black people. Now, if you ask most black people, they'll tell you the same thing. Oh, no, they racist too. Okay, so if the liberal is racist and the conservative is racist, then you don't have to marry yourself to the liberal cause. Why are you married to the cause? And I'm going to put this clip in here. It's about an hour and some change, but I got to put it in here because this pretty much sums it all up. This guy, Peter Schiff, is a multimillionaire. He goes down to the 1%ers. This is back during the 2012 election. And he's just talking to these guys and just see the level of ignorance. But the problem is there are a lot of black people in the crowd jumping their ass up there championing these gay marriage causes and all this different shit when they ain't got nothing to do with it. And see, when they get around these white people, that puts a battery in their backs to feel like, okay, I got white daddy behind me. I hate to use that term because I know a lot of hoteps use it, but that's the truth. They get a battery in their back when they start trying to champion these liberal causes that don't have shit to do with black economic empowerment. That has nothing to do with black empowerment. In fact, and I told Mr. Black this, a lot of that shit them alt-right folks saying, that shit don't bother me. It don't hurt my feelings when I see them say the stuff they say. That's the whole principle. You know, when I hear people say, when the alt-right talks about we want to have a white nation, I don't give a damn. Bye. Go. Because then niggas gonna have to take their money and start using it to build their own business and have their own society. I would love that. Let me tell you guys something. I'm gonna put that clip up there and that's the end of this video. But I'm gonna just do this right here. That part of the video, when you hear alt-right people say what they say, because we hear alt-right and it's synonymous with stupid. Like it's synonymous with evil. I'm gonna tell you something. Some of them alt-right people are racist than a motherfucker. They hate niggas. They hate us. They see me, they'll probably want to kill me. I understand that shit, but if they do, that's a whole different story. But what I'm saying is, this is where I agree with them. I agree with them. You don't like me? Okay, fine. I don't like your ugly ass either. Let's separate and we do our shit over here. And I'm gonna tell you something about black people. We're so scared of that shit. We say we want it, but we don't. Because let me tell you something. If the white man ever, under any circumstances, decides to say, hey, I'm gonna break free of the black man, and the black man has to wake up and now you got to build your own economic infrastructure, your own highways, your own roads, your own businesses, your own government, your own schools. What'll happen? What will happen? Huh? I ain't gonna lie. The first 10, 15, maybe 20 years is gonna be hell. I will admit. But we have to go through that shit because right now we laying in the bed on ICU in the hospital and we done pretty much been addicted and had a drug overdose. And that drug is white dependency, depending on whites. The dependency on white business, white on everything. So much so that we think white. We think white first. That's why we bitch about them not letting us in their businesses. We bitch about them not giving us jobs. We bitch about them not taking us at their universities. We bitch about them not their women not having sex with us. You got people in the porn industry bitching about, I saw a guy put it in a group I'm in. He put up a little article about the black porn people bitching because white people don't want to do videos with them. Like, fuck you. I don't want to fuck a white woman anyway. Get your ass on. You know, that's just how I am. I'm all the way black. But what I'm saying is That's us. We bitch about not being included. But let me tell you something. And this is it, man. When I talk about the brain drain, and I did a video on the brain drain, I talked about black human capital. Go back and look at those videos I did a couple of weeks ago about black human capital. The problem is the best and brightest are being siphoned out of the black community and put into the white businesses. They're being put into the white establishment so that those people, see, let me tell you something. If we separate, and I warned you, my kids here, he trying to do his ABCs, but look, if you take the best and brightest of the black community, and let's say you take the black people that work in these big Fortune 500 companies, and you kick them out of GM, you kick them out of Ford, you kick them out of all these different companies. Yeah, they're going to suffer. But these are intelligent people. These are very, very intelligent people. In short, what's going to happen is eventually that intelligence is going to build a black economic infrastructure. Because now you have that brain power, and we will reach that critical mass of black human capital, which is what we've been talking about. We're missing it because, like I said, white ice is colder than black ice. Everything's better for the white man, so we need to go. I'm proud to say I work for Procter & Gamble. And the reason I use Procter & Gamble a lot of times, because I know some of the most intelligent people I went to Tuskegee with, they went to Procter & Gamble. We have a great presence of mechanical and civil and all these different types of engineers, chemical engineers. They go to Procter & Gamble. They go to GM. They go to all these different companies, Ford Motor Company. A lot of those people were able to, matriculate as soon as they graduated right into Hewlett Packard. You see a lot of black people in Idaho that work for HP, that work for these major companies, Raytheon. They stay at Tuskegee with the electrical engineers. These are intelligent people. They don't have to necessarily work for these white companies. So that's what we need. Those people need to be within the black community. Look, the kid in the hood needs to live and get up and go to school every morning and look and see a black engineer that lives with his family, and they're not in the white side of town. They're right there in their face. That's why I'm not so against segregation. I'm really not. Only thing I really think we needed under the Civil Rights Act was pretty much the right to vote and equal representation. And that's it. Equal protection. That's it. Government. So you can't just lynch a nigga. You can't just come in my community and do some shit and not go to jail. That's the only thing that I think black people needed. You want to be a white business owner and you don't want to accept my dollars, you're a fool. Because the way I see it, I'm still hungry. I still need to consume gas, food, clothing, shelter, and I'm gonna give it to a black man. So I don't see us benefiting from that. But let me look at this. This is pretty much, I'm gonna give you this video, and that's the end of this thing. I'm gonna introduce it for you. What this is basically a guy who is a businessman trying to explain capitalism to a bunch of idiots. And the main asshole on the video is gonna be this black guy with a mask on. He's gonna say a lot of dumb shit, but you can't really get at his ass because he over talking. He won't let him get a word in, and it just a lot of shit pissed me off. And one of the parts that really pissed me off when people talk about income inequality, as if, like, think about that shit. Income inequality. I don't even think there's a such thing as income inequality. You're not going to get the same results for everybody. So everybody's not going to make $100,000 a year because everybody doesn't have the same human capital. So a guy that is an unskilled laborer, there's no way he should make what the store manager makes, who has 10 years experience and started as working over in the appliances, is now he's over the store making $150, $200 a year, and you're upset and you're saying, well, this guy makes $200 a year and I'm making $8 an hour. You don't have any skills. Like I heard, I think it was either Zig Ziglar or I think it was either him or Napoleon Hill. They talked about a company, and the guy was bitching about the wages, and he said, okay, question, do they pay everyone that works at that company the same wage? The guy said no. He said, okay, so then one would have to deduce that you don't have the skills to produce that much value within that company to warrant $8 an hour. And if you do have those skills to warrant more than $8 an hour, then your ass need to quit and go find somebody that's willing to pay you more for your labor. That's all it is. Money is nothing but stored labor. That's it. So the more skills you have, the more storage of that labor per hour you get. I mean, I know, you know, pretty much that's how it works. These motherfuckers don't understand basic economics. Look at this shit and just, you know, comment. Feel free to comment. I hate to make this video long, but that was the only way I could do this one. So,
by the way, around the 1 hour 30-minute mark, the guy is really gonna give this chick a red pill. You can see the look in her face, man. It's funny. So check it out. And then the other guy, shortly after that, the younger guy, is like, well, I'm just here to learn. Like, you know, it's one thing to actually get a paycheck. It's another thing to have to sign the front of that paycheck and make a profit. And most Americans don't understand that. So I despise the liberal viewpoint. If you don't know that by now, I'm not a liberal. I'm conservative. I believe in reparations. I believe in black economic empowerment. So that's about it. Thank you. Have a good night. Also, I have a little quick commentary at the end, 5 seconds. You know, just check it out. Thank you.
All right, this is Peter Schiff, and I've come down here to Occupy Wall Street to represent the 1% and see if I can have a dialogue with the other 99%, maybe see if we can find some common ground, and maybe I can help educate the people to direct their protests to the more appropriate source, because it's my opinion that they shouldn't be here occupying Wall Street. They should be in Washington occupying Pennsylvania Avenue. They should be protesting in front of the White House, in front of the Federal Reserve, in front of Congress, in front of the Supreme Court, not down here protesting capitalism. Capitalism is the only solution that they have to their problems. It's not capitalism that has failed them. It's socialism, it's corporatism, it's crony capitalism, it's fascism. That is the problem. Capitalism is the solution if we can only fully embrace it. Anyway, we got a few people around here, and I'm wondering who in particular would like to address any of their grievances and maybe tell me what they're hoping to get from Occupy Wall Street, and maybe we can maybe come to some solutions or put them on a better path. Anyway, I don't know if you're filming the crowd. We have a question over here. All right, what's your name?
Margot.
Margot, where are you from?
Portland, Oregon.
And you came all the way here for the protest, or?
Well, I actually went to Germany first.
Uh-huh.
And then I have a friend in Brooklyn, so I thought, well, I'll stop to see her.
But you didn't protest in Germany, did you?
Oh, no, that happened after you guys started here.
All right.
But I went to the book trade fair. But, I mean, I have a simple question.
Okay.
Who are you?
Peter Schiff.
Okay.
I'm a businessman. I own many companies, but one of them is a security broker dealer. So I have an office in Manhattan, but I have offices all around the country.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. But I'm definitely in the 1%. I could be in the 1% of the 1%. Yeah. So I'm here.
Yeah.
And you know, and as I said, I have a lot of sympathy for the people who are protesting.
Yeah.
But they're protesting, you know, they're directing their anger in the wrong direction.
Yeah. Okay. So with the media, the social.
One sec. Yeah.
And Twitter and Julian Assange and all those kind of things that are coming together. Is that forms a way to have a forum, a conversation, and to getting the secrets out? There's so many secrets.
Well, did you have a question or did you have a concern?
How do you get the secrets out? Because
I don't know what secrets you're talking about. I'm trying to get the truth out and explain, because I'm one of the few people in the country that actually predicted the economic crisis, the housing bubble, the financial crisis. I warned about it for years. Well, Nobody listened. That was the problem.
I worked for state government, and I can tell you there are a lot of secrets. And it's the secrets that we don't know, and then that's hard to work against because the people who aren't inside the government don't know where the secrets are, where the gaps are.
All right.
So how do we find out?
Well, I don't know what secrets you're talking about. I'm just trying to, you know, the secret is that it's not capitalism that's the problem here. If we had capitalism, there'd be nothing to protest. All these people would have jobs. It's because of government that people don't have anything to do. But anyway, so what's your name?
My name is Derek Brown, and I'm speaking from another perspective. We're meshing. It's people apparently from all states, nations, genders,
where are you from,
colors,
Derek?
and creeds. I'm from the Bronx.
Okay.
Okay. I have this thing that, imagine, compassionate capitalism. Is there such a thing? Could there be such a thing?
Well, it's the most compassionate system I know, by definition.
Your definition being coming from the 1%. Now, I have no problem with you having money. The problem is there's those who are destitute and discontent with their lot in life.
Right, but what is the solution? How if you don't have money now, how are you going to get it? And how do people that have money, you know, in a capitalist society where, you know, people are free to spend their money where they want. Let me finish 1 second. The way a capitalist gets rich is to figure out what the consumers want and give it to them, and do it at a less expensive price at a better quality. So the way a capitalist gets rich is by enriching everybody else.
Okay, so that's what you have to say as part of the 1%. Again, I have no problem with you having a lot of money and you having something to give, and you getting what you deserve from your labors and your endeavors.
And what is your?
But my thing is, if you make 100 million, imagine how many jobs could be created if you just made 50 million.
Well,
listen, now, when I say compassionate capitalism, I'm talking about this. People who make allowances for those who have not.
But what you're forgetting is, if I make 100 million, I had to create a lot of jobs to make that money. That's the point. When the capitalist is making money,
there's a thing called greed, and the problem with
we all greedy. Everybody.
No, we're not.
Well,
you cannot say that we're all greedy.
Oh.
You cannot.
Well, don't you want things
greedy.
for yourself? You don't want more. You don't want better things for yourself.
We
better life?
all do, and that's the problem.
Right.
Some of us are simple people. We just want a place to live. We just want some food in our refrigerator.
And capitalism,
we just want to take care of our kids.
Capitalism is the best way to get those things. I mean, you're standing here. You're not naked. You have clothes on. The people that made those clothes did it to make a profit, and to make a profit, they had to make clothes that you can afford. Capitalism is why we have food.
It's why I didn't get these clothes for free.
But somebody made them. Somebody had to produce them.
Listen, my friend, you need to open your mind.
It is
understand that all these people are not in this park because of your perspective.
So you're saying capitalism is the only way to produce things.
Right. Well,
do you think that socialism is wrong?
It is wrong. It's absolutely wrong. But first, I employ 150 people. Hold on. I employ 150 people. Right. I've created those jobs. How many jobs did you create? How many people did you employ?
How much money have I given you?
But you haven't given me anything. But my point is, I've created 150 jobs. I'm writing paychecks every week.
I haven't given you anything.
What do you?
Everybody in this park has contributed to your fat ass bank account.
How do you figure?
In one way, shape, form,
how,
or fashion.
How do you figure that?
You know something? You need to open up your mind.
Were the people in this park? Were the people in this park working 20-hour days, or when I started my company in my one-bedroom apartment? Were they there? No, they weren't.
I'm quite sure they have been.
Who?
I'm quite sure that there's other people that you need to speak to.
But how are you going to get jobs unless you have capitalists that are going to employ you?
You need to open up the avenue of your mind to understand other perspectives.
And just so you know, how much of my total income right now do you think the government takes every year from me? How much do you think?
Listen,
but just guess.
I'm oblivious.
But give me a guess.
But there's other people that need to.
Does anybody here want to guess what percentage of my income the government takes from me right now?
Why we're here?
Huh? That's pretty close.
We don't play a guess again. We have data. Give us your data.
No, but the government takes.
How much do you make?
Doesn't matter what I make. The government takes half of it. Every dollar I earn, I get to spend 45 cents. The government spends 55 cents. So the government's already taken more than half my money. I don't know how much more.
So where do you stand concerning our?
I don't lobby anybody.
Where do you stand concerning our plight?
I feel for your plight. I wish that we had a more vibrant economy. The problem is the government is taxing and regulating the economy to death. The government is not letting capitalism work. You guys are protesting all the bailouts on Wall Street. I was with you. I was against the bailouts even before they were proposed. I knew these banks were going to fail. I wanted them to fail. I didn't want the government to bail them out. That's not capitalism. Capitalism would have let the banks fail. A lot of people on Wall Street would have lost their jobs if we had capitalism. Instead,
the United States if that happened.
It would have been in better shape. We would have taken the medicine.
The world economy would have survived.
Without the government bailouts, absolutely. The economy is in trouble because the government.
I'm here. I've been observing this for a few days. I'm actually from a libertarian mindset. I know your background, Paul, and a lot of that sort of stuff. I've actually been amazed how much overlap I saw. I saw a lot of end the Fed stuff. I saw a lot of things that actually overlap where I thought I was walking into a leftist movement. Do you see this as a left-wing movement, or do you see this more as a populist, apolitical movement?
Well, I think that people, especially young people, have a right to be pissed off because they're
getting
getting
Social Security. I'm paying all this stuff.
Well, not only that. Look, we've sold the young generation short.
Yeah.
We've put them through these government schools. We've loaded them up with debt. One of the problems people want is the forgiveness of the student loans. Why are there all these student loans? It's because the government guaranteed them. If the government minded its own business, then nobody could get a student loan.
Well, there's never been a monopoly without government involvement.
No, but my point is, if it wasn't for the government, college would be cheap. The tuitions would be low. It's only because the government subsidizes it and guarantees the loans. But who gets the shaft here? It's the kids. The colleges get all the money, and they stick the kids with the bill. They graduate with these worthless degrees with $100,000 or more in debt, and they can't get a job. And if they get a job, they're paying massive taxes. They're paying Social Security taxes to support a generation that voted in this Ponzi scheme before any of these people were born. They're paying income taxes. If there's anything left, they got to pay back their student loans, and they can't even discharge them in bankruptcy. And if they die, their parents are stuck with them. So I think, I think
the blame on government.
Of course, the government did it.
Well, it's not all the blame of the government.
Well, who else did it?
You
Who guaranteed?
Together, you guys are part of the
No.
same team.
Wall Street is. I agree.
Who lobbies?
No, you're right. But why are there lobbyists? Why are lobbyists successful? Because government has power and influence. The problem is the government. If the government couldn't dole out special favors and subsidies, there would be no lobbyists. So what you've got to do is take the power away from government and bring it back to the people.
Then you guys would own everything.
No, then we'd have freedom. Then we'd be a wealthy country like we used to be before the government came in and screwed it all up. We created the wealthiest society that the world had ever seen. The standard of living, you go back to 1950, the average American had a standard of living nobody can match anywhere in the world. That's not true today, because we don't lead the world in freedom. We lead the world now in big government and regulation and central banking. That is the problem. We have to go back to the Constitution. We have to go back to our roots. Of course, but why? Well, because we No, but the government made it so expensive to hire Americans. That's the problem. All the taxes, all the laws, minimum wage, occupational licensing, payroll taxes, unemployment taxes, all the potential litigation, the government has made it so expensive and so risky to hire. Look, I hire people, right? And a lot of times I'm reluctant to hire people. I try to avoid it. Because the problem is the government makes it too expensive. I know a lot of small businessmen that do everything they can not to hire people because they don't want the headache from the government. They don't want the legal liability. They don't want the government dragging them into court and suing them because they don't think they hired somebody the right way, or maybe they fired them for the wrong reason. The government is looking over the shoulder of every businessman, and it is hard enough to start a business without the government complicating it with taxes and regulations. When people start a small business, they put it all on the line. It's their money. They have to pay everybody first. They pay their employees, they pay their rent. They only make money if there's something left over. And the government makes it very hard, so people don't start businesses. And if they do, they try not to hire people because they can't take the cost. And if businesses are moving their jobs, I recently set up a bank in the Caribbean. I'm moving some of my employees to Singapore. I would rather keep all my employees here, but I don't have a choice. The government is making me uncompetitive. The rules and regulations are so expensive that the only way I can stay in business is to move part of my business to other countries. But I would rather do all my business here if it weren't for the government.
I think it's the corporations that get greedy and decide that, why we pay someone $8 an hour if we can get someone for 50 cents an hour in India? And that's why we move over, not because of government.
First of all, the corporations are just people. It's people that own stock, right? And if you go back to the 1950s, for example, America paid the highest wages in the world, much higher than we do today. Yet we produced the cheapest stuff. Our products cost less than products produced anywhere else in the world, and so we sold them all around the world. Why? How was it that we could pay the highest wages but produce the lowest cost stuff? It was because we had more capital. We had more capital because we had lower taxes and fewer regulations. So we gave our workers tools and machines to make them more productive. We don't have that anymore. We are not as productive as other countries. That is the problem. But you have to ask yourselves why. How did we have such a huge lead, and how did we blow it? What did we do wrong? And what we did wrong was more government, more rules, more regulations, more taxes that made us less competitive. That's why the jobs are gone.
So hold on. Is it safe to say that you're the only one here who's anti-government?
I don't know. There are probably a lot of people here who are. All right. How many people here blame the problems on the government?
Partially.
Would you count the Federal Reserve?
Yes,
the
yes, definitely the Federal Reserve. It's a big
Talk
part
about
of the
that a
problem.
little bit.
Yeah, well, it's the Federal Reserve that creates all the inflation, that destroys the value of our savings and our wages. It's the Federal Reserve that inflated the housing bubble and the stock market bubble before it.
Every bubble.
Oh, yeah. What's this?
Can you speak? You're in this movie, right?
In this movie? I don't know. I don't know if I'm in that movie.
Yeah, Plunder, you're in this movie.
I am?
Danny Schechter's film.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I'm in it. I get in a lot of documentaries, so I could be in there.
What do you think of Wall Street as a finance?
Well, look,
such a good job.
I think
Why is America going down?
it is going down. It's going down.
I thought you 1%ers are doing such a good
No.
job.
Well, some of the 1%ers who are working on Wall Street, who are getting their money based on government bailouts and subsidies, that is the problem. They should be allowed to go broke. But there are a lot of people who are businessmen who don't get a government subsidy, who are trying to overcome enormous government regulatory hurdles and high taxes. You know, they deserve that money. But I'm with you on Wall Street. Nobody deserves a bailout. No company is too big to fail. If someone on Wall Street gets in trouble, they should lose their money. That's how capitalism works. You take the good and the bad.
Why are there 16 million people out of work?
Well, the main reason is because the government, through the Federal Reserve, is bleeding Main Street dry to siphon money to the speculative activities going on here on Wall Street.
Why
A lot.
1% get income going up dramatically over the last 20 years?
For the reasons.
While the average income of the average guy has gone down dramatically.
Yeah, it's going down because of big government. The government is undermining the productivity of our country. Look, you're not gonna bring the poor up by bringing the rich down, right? You don't make the poor richer by making the rich poorer. You need rich people to invest their money to grow the economy, to create the products, to create the businesses, to create the jobs. If you take away the money, you get less. It's not nobility. No. Lords and ladies, that's from government, right? I'm talking about people earning their own money from their own hard work.
You identify as a 1%er?
Excuse me?
You identify as a 1%?
Well, I'm in the 1% for the purpose of this protest.
I understand. Excuse me. We cannot have acts of violence or violation of the
I think it was the wind. I think it was the wind.
Okay, if you feel like that you're being pushed, I just wanted to invite you to, if you want to have a dialogue with us forming a spokes council or some body that we're forming, we're trying to form more official bodies. I mean, you can come here and talk to people if you want. You know, you're free to do that autonomously. But if you'd like to meet with, we were doing it a little more structured earlier, and if you'd like to meet with us.
Well, I mean, I'm right here. If anybody wants to come and ask me a question.
Great.
You know.
Thank you very much. I'm Jesse.
Sure.
Nice to meet you.
I just want to shake your hand because I've watched you a lot on, what is this for?
Well, this is Reason TV. We're just there, and they're going to put it online and try to make something out of it. But
okay, he's next. He's next right here. This guy wants to talk next.
Do you respect the fact, sir, you addressed yourself as the 1%, that all the people around you are demonstrating here against that concept?
I understand that. That's why I'm here.
Do you respect us for sitting here
you,
and having a civilized conversation?
Of course. I understand your concerns. I'm with you. I agree that you should be upset. But you're upset at the wrong people.
But does it show you that maybe we have some quality to be respected?
I am respecting you. If I wasn't respecting you, I wouldn't be here.
I think we're against the wrong people when we're against the same big government.
Well, the rep on the Occupy Wall Street movement is that it's an anti-capitalist movement. And my point is that we don't have capitalism. We have crony capitalism, and I'm against that. I'm with you on that. I want to get the government and the banks, I want to get them out of our lives. But a lot of people, I look at some of the grievances.
Please respect your community. We have formed a line autonomously. For me to talk to you, I formed
an autonomous
line.
Hold on. Let me get this thing. Hold on to this.
I think that you'd appreciate this.
All right, what's your name?
My name is Sage.
Oh, Sage, okay, go ahead.
So in order to talk to you, I formed an autonomous line.
Okay, so where's the...
So I served my community in order to get something for myself.
Well, did you? Did they pay to be on the line?
No, what I wanted for myself was to talk to you.
All right, well, go ahead.
So what I wanted to say was, what did you want to accomplish from coming to Occupy Wall Street?
Well, I wanted to come down here because I see a protest movement, and I agree with the sentiment, and I agree with the fact that you should be protesting. It's just, my point is, it's Washington that should be the recipient of the protest. You guys should be marching on the White House and the Federal Reserve, demanding your freedom back, demanding capitalism, demanding liberty, fighting for the constitutional rights that you should have by birth. Not protesting. This is the consequence.
I don't
down
go on
here.
the marches.
Huh?
I don't go on the marches.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Hi. Hi. How you doing? I'm talking. I'll be right back. So anyway, I've come here. I don't go to the protests. I prefer to occupy the future instead of protesting the past. I've been here since like day one, not to brag, but I've noticed that there's sort of a difference between the people that come here to occupy and the people that come here to protest. I find that the media really likes paying attention to the protest, but doesn't really like paying attention to the occupation.
I didn't know there was a difference.
Well, maybe if you spend more time here.
Well, it's my first day.
I just wanted to say that I heard you say something about money, that people pursue money. I think that when people focus on one aspect of the process, like the money aspect, that things start to get demented.
Well, they pursue money because they want the things that money can buy, but money is a yardstick to show. Well, if you're doing a business, if you're pursuing a business and you're not making money, that means you're not creating value. The market is telling you to stop. But if you can organize labor, land, and capital and make a profit, the profit tells you you're benefiting society. You're providing. You're making economic use of resources.
I understand that you're very educated about economics. But the thing is that you were saying that people pursue money because they like what they can buy with the money. What about like the kind of people that, and the only aspect of person of that I know is that people that like collect a lot of money and then they like store it under their bed and then they die.
But no one does that. Money that's saved isn't stored. The only way you can make your money grow, if you want to grow your money, you have to make it available. You have to invest it. You have to either invest it yourself.
You're jumping into what you're comfortable in, which is your economic education.
But that's what people do.
I'm it back down to a normal level. What about the kind of people, organizations of people that acquire resources, but for some mentally sick reason never figure out how to spread those resources around?
And they don't get that many. The only way to get really rich, right, is to share your wealth by investing it. Look, Steve Jobs just passed away. He made billions. How many people here have iPhones in their pockets?
I feel what you want is...
He's not a humanitarian. He's a businessman. But he enriched the lives of millions of people pursuing his own self-interest.
I am not a ramp so that you can do an ollie in front of your camera. I actually want to have a conversation.
Anyway, but I have a lot more people to talk to. So if
sure enough. Let's see who's next online.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
I want to say one thing.
Right here.
I just have it has nothing to do with, like, I just want to, you seem like I've been in a search for someone, and it goes deeper than a lot of things that I can say in front of a crowd. But I believe that I was put here today because I've been a part of the occupation on and off because I am so young, and it's not really, I'm not really able to be out of certain areas. Like, I'm young, I have a curfew, I have parents, you understand? So it's like, I came out here today for the first time in a couple days, and I believe that you were put here. I believe that you were put here among other reasons for me to speak to. So if it was possible for me to have a conversation with you,
a real conversation,
conversation outside of the cameras, outside of the microphones, I'd like to have a conversation.
There's a lot of people here.
No,
that's the only problem. So.
I'll wait as long as it takes. I want to be I want to be the last person you talk to. I have a question. Okay. All right, I guess in terms of a question.
Okay, yeah.
How do you advise people who, like you say, who would like to start a business or create something, create an evolution, a revolution, who need money but are not after it at the money? The money is not the end, but it is a means to an end.
Of course, if you're going to start a business, if you don't make money, how are you going to employ people? How are you going to pay your rent? How are you going to buy your materials? What I want people like you to be able to start a business. The problem is it's very hard. You know, it's easier today for a young man to start a business in communist China than it is in America, because the government actually leaves you alone more there. There's not as much regulation. There's not as much red tape. There's not as much taxes. And when my grandparents came to this country, they didn't even speak the language. My grandfather started a small carpentry business. There were no rules, regulations, no red tape. If he hired somebody, it was just hired him. He just paid him cash at the end of the day. If there was any money left over, he was happy. It was easy. You can succeed in America when my grandparents came here because they didn't have all these roadblocks. I want to eliminate the roadblocks so you can have the same opportunities that he had.
I understand I understand what you're saying, and I do have ways to make money. I'm a musician. My brother's a musician. That is our thing. We preach our word through our music because, like you can see here, there's senseless drumming going on there, but it draws crowds. You understand? Music is a strong vehicle to put a point across. Like if everyone...
My point is that you'd be able to pursue that craft easier and make more money doing it if the government was out of the way. Not only out of your way, but out of the ways of the people that you want to play music for.
It's not about making money.
You might want to play music in a venue, and the venue can't allow it because there's too many government rules and regulations, and they can't take the risk, and they won't hire you.
Understood.
No, it's not trusting me, it's trusting
I understand.
ourselves.
What I'm saying is, what about the person who needs money now? You're talking about investing. What do I basically? I'm looking for advice to.
Well, if you have a business plan and you need money, you got to find someone like me and convince them to back you. And the thing is, though, well, I don't even know what his plan is.
That's why I wanted to speak to you.
But you keep saying, you said that the reason why he's having a problem is because the government is getting in his way. What is the government doing to stop him from starting a business? What, as far as regulations are concerned?
Well, because
what regulations is the government stopping from a small business from the beginning?
There are far fewer people that have savings and capital to invest because the government taxed it all away. So there's not as many people like me for you to talk to. But of course, if we're going to start a business and I'm going to fund it, what I have to look at is, okay, what are all the rules and taxes and regulations that we're going to have to overcome to start that business?
And
but it adds to the risk of the venture.
Okay,
it adds to my risk.
To get a loan from you. You're not giving him the loan because you're saying that the government is stopping you from giving him a loan.
No, I'm saying that the government is making it inherently riskier because it's going to be harder for his business to succeed and pay me back because of all the regulations and taxes. And I'm saying,
but you know,
because
can I say one thing?
Go ahead.
What I'm saying is you just proved my point because I came to you and I asked you to have a conversation. I asked you to review my business plan. I asked you to aid me in starting a business, and you wanted to treat me like someone who...
I'm not treating you like it, but my point is,
not to
you're
insult
right.
you, sir.
But if we start raising taxes on this so-called 1%, all we do is diminish the ability of people like you to get a loan because somebody has to save the money.
I'm not talking about a loan. What I'm talking about is I wanted you to fund my business. I presented you.
Yeah, we just met in the park. I know you for all of 10 minutes. How am I going to fund your business?
That's what I'm saying is that's why I asked you. That's why I came to you, and I didn't ask you to ask you. I didn't come here with a question. You asked me to ask you a question. I didn't come here with a question. I didn't come here with any of that. I came here to get maybe an email address, to get maybe a website.
I'm Schiff@Europac.net. Why don't you come up with a business proposal and send it to me?
Sorry, what was that?
Schiff@Europac.net.
Can you spell that for me?
SCHIFF. I'm all over the internet. You can find me. But
I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find an email address. There might not be.
It's there. Trust me.
Clarify one thing.
So it's what is your full name?
Well, Peter Schiff.
Peter Schiff.
Yeah.
And it's Schiff at
Europac.net.
Europac.
EUROPAC.net.
PAC.net.
Yeah, I gave you a card, but I don't think I have it.
My name is Reggie Elijah.
All right, well, good luck. All right, you're a nice young man.
I just want to clarify one thing before I let this guy speak. The 99% meme.
The what?
The 99% to 1% meme was just one meme out of many memes.
What's a meme?
I'm so sorry. A popular turn of phrase.
Okay.
So the catchphrase 99%. This is not 99% Park. It's Liberty Plaza. And the 99% catchphrase is not definitive of everyone here. It makes sense why a popularity meme would be popular. It's popularity itself. The phrase itself might as well be popularity.
But anyway.
But just so you know, as you come in here at the 1%, not everyone here.
I understand you have to make money, but there's got to be regulations because I believe in democracy, but I also believe in regulations. Right. The market has to grow at a sensible rate, right? It cannot grow too fast. If the market grows too fast, it will crash.
See, the regulation we want is the market. That's the regulation that works. When governments try to regulate, it screws it all up. Now let's take a corporation. If a corporation wants to sell a product, It can't sell the product for whatever price it wants. Somebody has to voluntarily buy that product. So the market determines the price of the goods that are being sold. The same thing is with labor. A corporation just can't take advantage of its workers and pay them as little as it wants, because businesses compete with one another to buy labor. People are selling their labor, and so the market is going to set wages. The market is going to set prices. If the government comes in and tries to say, this is the wage that needs to be paid, all they do is end up creating lots of unemployment. They have classes of people that aren't allowed to work. No, that's a matter of fact. Well, huh?
Did a government end slavery, or did the United States government end slavery? Did a corporation end slavery, or did the government do it? Did corporations?
What does slavery have to do with what we're talking about?
We're saying what there is a role for government in our society, and corporations cannot do everything.
But slavery was wrong to begin with, so let's not even. It was government that created it, but government created. Wait, hold on. But government created slavery.
Okay, so you're saying that your argument is that corporations know better than the United States government or any government?
Well, first of all, corporations.
Let me finish. So what you're saying is we should disband the federal government, go back to a system before the federal government existed, where states had the rights to choose whatever laws they wanted, and then how do corporations
remember,
play a role in
I'm
Walmart?
Well,
does Walmart make policy?
Well, hold on. First of all,
and then our senators just go
first
home?
of all, I'm saying go back to the Constitution. I'm not saying go back to prior to the.
Written 200 years
but
ago, and it's imperfect. That's why
well,
there has been amendments to it.
Well,
it was imperfect.
Well,
so they're called amendments
yeah,
to
but
correct things that weren't,
yeah, but
that
even
don't represent
but
what's going on now.
notwithstanding the amendments, the government is operating outside the principles of the Constitution. I want limited government, but you're what?
Saying limited to how much? How much? Where does government have a role in the lives of 300 million people?
Government is there to protect property, life, liberty, and that's it.
And
yes,
that's it.
It's not there to redistribute wealth. It's not there. When you have government do that, it doesn't work. History is filled. Well, that's because of government. The market. I'm against the bailout. The government shouldn't have done that. That was unconstitutional. Yes, the government. No, the market would work well if the government stayed out.
Do you believe that all world governments should just shut down?
No, of course not.
But of
course not. But you mentioned Walmart. So what are you afraid that Walmart's going to do to you?
What am I afraid they're going to do to me?
What is Walmart doing?
You should go and ask the employees that are working in sweatshop type conditions that don't get enough hours, that don't have health care. How is it?
Okay. Then why don't they quit? I mean, Walmart doesn't hold a gun to their head. If they can get a better job.
So why did the rape victim get raped? What was she doing out late at night?
They're not. All right. So are you offering people better? Are you offering people better jobs in Walmart? If you think people in Walmart aren't getting a good deal, why don't you offer to hire them from?
So if the people at Walmart, if the board of directors at Walmart don't see fit to, if they want to hire 40,000 people and keep most of them on as part-time employees, just for the simple fact, excuse me, let me finish. That they don't want them to work more than 40 hours, so they don't have to bring them into their healthcare system, so then they don't have to pay for their healthcare.
But
is that right?
But the government
to do that?
The government.
Wait. If Walmart's not going to change it, and Walmart's going to keep up, and any corporation, not just Walmart, any corporation that doesn't give and protect its employees, that pays them a livable wage, if it's not government's purpose to do that, then who is going to step in and fill the void to make sure that 300 million people are represented properly? Who does that?
It's the government that is imposing these regulations that is causing Walmart to try to get around.
If the government isn't there to do it, who is supposed to do that?
If you go back to, let's say, Henry Ford, and Ford Motors Company, 100 years ago, before there were labor unions, before there was a minimum wage, before the average Ford worker was making twice what the Ford workers are making today.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and you know what? There was a lot of other imperfections in the system. Do you want to go back to 1920, 1930? What is this golden year that Republicans want to go back to?
I don't want.
What year? The 60s? The 70s?
I don't want to go back to that technology, but I want to go back to that level of freedom.
I want
the level of freedom
more
freedom for
everybody.
everybody.
Women couldn't vote at some point. African Americans and others had to ride in the back of the bus.
I'm telling you,
want to go back there.
Look,
we don't want to go back.
I'm telling you, there's more economic freedom.
There was more economic freedom.
Yes,
but
a lot more.
Social freedom and social justice.
Well, what do you consider social justice?
I represent payment right now.
There's no. There's
reparation.
I want to know.
What?
The
What?
Germans and Japanese get
Hey,
reparation.
my reparation. My grandparents weren't even in this country until like 1900. How am I gonna get? He gonna get reparations from me?
So you want it? So guys.
What you need is freedom and opportunity. That's your reparation. Do you shop at Walmart?
You don't want to.
No, I don't shop at Walmart.
Where do you buy your clothes?
You want to talk?
I don't buy them at Walmart.
Where do you buy them?
I buy them at places that aren't perfect, and I buy them.
Let me ask you a question.
But here's the thing: it doesn't.
But
You
when
can't.
you shop-
can't just say.
But
You
here's
can't
my
just say,
question.
listen, if you ever bought something from Walmart,
No.
then your argument
Well,
just goes
let me
out
ask
the
my
window.
question.
If that's what you're
No,
trying to
but
do.
when you go shopping,
you know what I mean?
do you try to buy clothes that are less expensive, or do you try to pay more for your clothes? I mean, do you look around
I
for
own
a
an
bargain?
iPhone 4S, just bought it. Yeah, I mean,
But
it's,
if there were two shirts, the same shirt, one was $20 and one was $50, which one would you buy?
come on, what
Look,
kind
tell
of a
me.
question is
Which
that?
one would you buy?
What kind of a question
Just
is
give me
it?
an answer.
Whichever one I prefer.
No,
Whichever
they're identical.
One I
They're the
prefer.
same
exactly
shirt.
identical.
Yes.
I'll buy the one. I'll buy the one for $20. I'll
Okay,
buy the one.
but
for
what
$20.
if the guy that made the one for $20 was paying his workers less?
Oh,
What if the
so
guy
now-
that was charging $50
But
was
now
paying
it-
more
but now
money?
It comes in. Now,
No, but
now all of the buts and ifs
no,
and
but now,
everything else
but my
comes
point is, are you going to pay more money to the guy that pays higher wages?
If it meant that at least 30% of the iPhone was manufactured here by American workers, I would pay more for it.
So you would-
I would pay more for
How
it.
much- so-
how is it possible
Well-
that Apple has more money on the books than the United States federal government?
It's
You know how
easy.
No, let me finish. You know how it's possible? It's a rhetorical question. Because Republicans and the business class that are in our politics saw fit to give tax breaks to all corporations and the wealthiest people so that they can starve the federal government of its taxation. And now you have a system. We have a system where there's corporations that have more money than the United States federal government.
Well, that's not
The
even
thought
close.
Sounds preposterous.
Well,
but it's true.
Well,
But now let me ask you a question. Is it okay? There's been memorials for Steve Jobs all over the place, at every Apple store. There's reporters that are all around the world that never asked one single question to Steve Jobs when he was alive. Why are you manufacturing your iPhone in China and you don't have any of your manufacturing here in the United States?
And I'll tell you why. Because we've made it.
Do you think that's fair to the American people?
Wait, the American people don't own those jobs. Steve Jobs has a right to manufacture where he wants.
He does have a right to do it.
And the problem is, we have made it too expensive for him to manufacture
Oh,
here.
we did.
With the
Because
government.
the American workers want too much?
No,
because
the
we
government
want
put
too much
too
healthcare?
much.
Oh, it's the government's
Again,
fault.
remember, the reason that employers, right,
Yeah.
want to lower wages
Yeah.
is because their customers want low prices.
Yeah.
Everybody wants
Yes.
low prices.
Okay.
You're all, and
So
if
because
we,
they want low prices, we
you
work
got
for lower
everybody in
wages?
this park wants low prices. You can't have low prices.
No, we don't. No, we don't.
Yes, you do.
We're not here. No, we're not here asking.
So you want to pay more?
Wait a second, just to check. Is anybody out here protesting to get lower prices? for corporations?
No. I'm saying you want higher prices.
Okay.
So you're in favor of, let's say, the cost of gasoline triple, the cost of food triple,
It's not going
the
to
cost
triple.
of,
We don't manufacture gasoline here.
But
we
if we,
manufacture goods here.
but given the costs that the government has built in, if these things were made here, they would cost a hell of a lot more money than they
so
cost
let's
now.
put all of the Americans out of work, right?
No.
So that's your justification for putting Americans out of work?
They're not going to be here. All the regulations you cannot. But there'd be no customers. There'd be no customers. Nobody would buy this stuff. It was too expensive.
What do you do? What do you do?
I'm in the investment business.
Okay.
Shelter and education, not for profit.
What about it?
Water, food, shelter, and education should not be for profit.
Well, that means you think education should be very expensive because everything that's done not for profit costs more. No, the profit is what keeps it cheap.
Current structure.
Yes. Why do you think education is so expensive?
The structure doesn't work.
Because the government is
Why
involved.
is education
Because
so
the
expensive?
government is
Oh,
involved.
it's the government's
is
fault. Why is
subsidized
everything
it.
the government's fault? in your eyes? Let me
Profits
ask you one
keep
thing.
prices
Can
down.
you name one good thing that the government does for you aside from military spending or military intervention?
Pretty much, no, I can't.
So you're a person
The
that
federal
believes,
government-
do you believe that the federal government has a right to exist and to govern the lives of
It
American
has the right
people?
to exist, but not in the form it exists today. It's operating outside
Do you
the
believe the
Constitution.
EPA should be disbanded?
I think it does a lot more harm than good.
Do you believe the
Yes.
FDA should be disbanded?
Yeah, I'd like to get rid of it.
What about the FDA?
Uh-huh.
The Board of Education?
I think we should.
What about the Board of Education?
I want to get rid of the entire Federal Department of Education. Yes, it is wasting our money, and it is running up the cost of education.
Sir, what I've learned, no, let me finish. What I've learned over the years is to never argue with a fool, and you, my friend, are a fool.
Okay, so I'm foolish, right? So I just stumbled into all my wealth. I run all these businesses.
How could you disband the EPA and the FDA and the Board of Education?
Because it's not the Board of Education. You're talking about the Department of Education. Wait, did I call you an idiot? Did I call you an idiot?
No, you didn't.
All right, so I have a little bit more respect.
I'm the next president of the United States. Stand down, sir. I'm the next president. Kazoo Cruiser for presidency. Listen, it may be a joke now, but when the earthquakes take out Washington, what are y'all going to do?
The Board of Education is not the federal government.
It's not the Board of Education's problem to fix the planet. It's mine. We're going to build boats. As the next administrator of the free world, we're going to build boats. Now you need to listen to me.
What is your point down here?
My point is to talk to people who are protesting capitalism and Wall Street and letting them know that they should be protesting government and Washington. That is what's ruining this country.
Government equals the Wall Street.
Well, you're fired.
Yes, that's today. Yes, that's the problem. But you got to go after Washington. That's the source of it. You can't blame the companies who took the bailouts. Blame the government that bailed them out. In many ways it is, and you're right, that's a problem. But we got to take the power away from government. As long as government can dole out power, people will take it.
If you're taking the power away from government, who are you trying to give it to? If you're trying to destroy
all of us. No. If you take government out of it, you don't have to worry about a corporation. All they can do is get you to voluntarily give them your money for their products. You don't have to fear a business. You fear government. Government has power over you. Businesses don't. All businesses can do is offer you services and products.
If the Department of Education was gone, what would you replace that with? What is there?
We had plenty of education in this country before the federal government got involved.
What's your opinion about entrepreneurship? What's your opinion about entrepreneurship?
Well, we need more of it. I'm an entrepreneur. We need more entrepreneurs. But the government is in the way of entrepreneurs.
Who the fuck is he? Who are you?
I don't know. Don't curse though. We're going to have to edit it out. Who am I? I'm an individual.
All right,
Peter Schiff.
you're walking around like a big kid with a microphone. Nobody needs to listen to you.
Well, then you don't have to listen to me.
You're right. You need to go back to Wall Street. You need to go back
on Wall Street, but you don't have
You're
to
dressed just like those pigs.
Well, I'm dressed like someone
polyester. You're a problem. You're a polyester
So what do you
pig.
want? You don't want anybody to work?
No, I don't want you wearing polyester.
Well, I don't know what. I'm not wearing polyester.
That's exactly what that is.
Don't touch him. Don't touch him. That's not
I'm making a point.
Okay. You don't have to.
Who else?
Maybe we should think about why all of my fellow veterans are coming back to no jobs, no future.
Well, you
30% of the homeless people in America.
Thank the federal government, the Federal Reserve for that.
Well, we should thank not just the Federal Reserve, but the 1% that's got all the money for that.
Yeah, but how do you
why
think
all the veterans are coming back? They're not getting treated.
No, most
They're on the street. 30% of the homeless people in America are veterans. So when everybody says we support the troops, that's a lie. You support the troops when they're out there getting killed or shot, but when they come home and they're homeless and they got no jobs, you don't support the troops.
I didn't even.
And that's why.
I didn't even support a lot of these wars that put those troops over there in the first place.
Let me
But
shake your hand. We're in agreement.
all right.
on that.
But the reason, look, the people in this country, most of them who earn their money, not a lot of the guys on Wall Street who got the bailouts. I'm with you on that. But most people around the country who earn their money deserve it, and they earned it by creating jobs and creating businesses and providing products and services here. No, here in this country too. No, all here too. Where do you think any of the jobs are coming from?
Some of those people are out here. You don't think some of those people are out here or at other occupations around the country?
Well, there are people out here.
A lot of
most
those
them out
people
here
have lost their businesses. They've lost their homes.
Yes.
You know,
yeah, because of the government. Because of big government.
We're all in the same boat together.
Right, and what we got to do
what we gotta know
is we got to dismantle this big federal government that is destroying the economy. Right? Then we can all swim together. We can all, capitalism will lift all boats.
We need a revolution is what we need.
Yeah.
We need an American revolution.
Hey, I'm with you. Hey,
we're working on that.
I ran for Senate last year. I didn't win though, but I tried.
But remember, man, my fellow veterans, they need to be taken care of.
You don't want to take away the The only reason you want to take money away from the federal government is to steal the rest of the money that you didn't steal already.
No, the federal government is the one that's stealing money from the people who earned it. I want to leave the money with the people who earned it, and they can use it to grow the economy, to create the jobs.
You just want to take out whatever left that you didn't, that the 1% didn't already.
No, what did I? What money did I have that I take? How did I take money?
You personally. I'm talking about the 1%.
What do you do for a living?
I work for the state.
Huh? All right. Well, I mean, I work for myself. I have a company, but I've made money because I have 20,000 customers who gave me their money voluntarily. I didn't force anybody to give me money.
Like Wall Street, the corporations that are running our economy.
Well, that's the problem. They shouldn't be.
They're
able
running
to run
our
it.
government.
But why are they? Because the government
It's
has
crony
the power.
capitalism. It's not capitalism.
Yes, exactly.
Well,
You
they
got
have
it.
the power.
We got it because government gave it to them. We got to take it back We got to take the power away from government so they can't give it out to their friends in banks or corporations. We want the corporations to get money who earn it without any political connections, without any special subsidies. We want them to earn the money because they produce the products and the services that we want at the prices that we want to pay. And in the process, they create jobs.
They're the ones bankrolling the campaigns. That's what you're saying you're against the federal government, you wanted to change and all that. But you guys are the ones, or at least these guys here on Wall Street are the ones that are funding all the campaigns and putting these people in power in the first place.
Right, but
and then you do so because you know that they will enact policies that you want. And then you also know that once they do that, and you become friends with them through campaign fundraising and all that.
That is the problem.
That they will let you in the government, and you'll be like, hey, can I be Secretary of the Treasury?
No, that is the problem. See, because Washington has so much power, there's lobbyists because people are peddling their influence, and corporations are trying to get the benefit of that power. But as long as the government is there with power, people are going to lobby to have it used in their interest.
The government is there to begin with, and it's supposed to have power to take care of the affairs of the country.
No, it's not.
What's not supposed to happen is that a small group of citizens with a certain amount of money are able to walk right into the government and then sit and then
the government is here
in the White House and sit in all these positions.
The federal government is here to be small and inconsequential. It's supposed to defend us from abroad, but it's supposed to.
Smaller, you get it even easier.
No. If they had no power, there'd be no lobbying. There'd be nothing to give out. We don't want the government to be able to pick winners and losers, to say you get a bailout and you don't, you pay a tax and you get a subsidy. That is the problem.
Actually make those decisions are the guys here once they get in government because they put themselves in the government with the money that they they buy those seats. The Secretary of the Treasury.
I want to we got to protest that process. But it begins in Washington. That's the source. No, you got to cut off the head of the snake.
Stop buying seats in the government and stop enacting these policies. Stop deregulating everything so that you can do whatever you want.
But as long as government can give out special favors, people are going to lobby to get them. You got
yes, these guys basically kick the door down and are like, yo, we funded your campaign. You better let us in there, or else we're not going to fund your campaign next time around. It's already happening. Because the guys here are angry at Obama for like trying to regulate them a little bit, so now they're giving all their money to Mitt Romney.
There's already too much regulation. Are you kidding me? In the financial industry, we're regulated to death. You know, because the
regulations that were rolled back in the 90s were still in place, we wouldn't have had this crisis.
The government caused the crisis with all the regulations. Look, I started my business, my brokerage business, in 1996, right? I'll get to that. I started my firm in 96. There is no way, with all the regulations that exist today, I could have started. You know, it took me almost 3 years to get permission from regulators to hire people. I was on a hiring freeze. It cost me $1 million or more in legal bills to get the
regulations we're talking about are the ones that allow these banks to get so huge.
Yeah, that was government. Government did that.
Create all these instruments, these financial instruments that
Yes.
are actually highly dangerous.
Yes.
And that cause
I agree. The Federal Reserve did that, and the government did that.
The politicians that are sitting around being like, oh, you know what? Let's regulate too much just so that these guys can crash the economy. It's because it's the guys here that are fundraising.
I mean, do you know that I was? Yeah, do you know that for years I was on television and writing books, warning about all the things that have just happened. I warned about the housing bubble. I warned that it was going to crash. No, well, I can't. I tried. No one, those people don't listen to me in Washington, but I warned. And
now that's what we're doing.
But I understood how the government created the problem. You're talking about Glass-Steagall. The reason that we had Glass-Steagall was to counteract the damage of government-insured bank accounts. The problem is the government shouldn't be insuring bank accounts. Yes, I know. But we shouldn't insure bank accounts, and then I know, because we shouldn't be insuring bank accounts.
Why shouldn't we?
Because do you have a bank?
Because a bank runs.
No, wait. Do you have a bank account?
Yes, I have a bank.
Do you care what the bank does with your money when you deposit it there? Do you care about the loan?
I do.
Why? Do you worry?
Because I don't want them to gamble with it. And all these securities.
No, but
all these securitizations
no.
created out of
If
the government.
if the bank gambles with their money and loses, does it affect your deposit?
Of course it does.
How? It's insured by the government.
If you take out Glass-Steagall, they use that.
Nobody in this area that has a bank account has ever looked at the bank's portfolio to see what kind of loans they're making. Nobody cares. No. You. So.
Are you personally benefiting from the Bush tax cuts? That's what I want to know. You're part of the 1%. Because I don't think anyone else here is benefiting from
I don't benefit from tax cuts. The government benefits from the money that I earn that they tax. That's my money. I earned it.
I'm probably doing better.
But I earned it. The government has no right to it.
I'm like this young man. I care what they're doing.
They have the right to tax for the general welfare and defense of this country. They don't have the right to take money from me and give it to somebody else. That's it. We're a
country, not individuals.
But we're a collection of individuals, and individual rights are supreme.
Unfortunately,
to protect our rights, not to steal from us.
Because of people who
it is. If it's for the wrong purposes, if the government, I didn't sign a contract with. I've got inalienable rights. No.
And we're in the 99%.
Well, what? Wouldn't you like to get into the 1%?
No,
you don't want more money. You don't want. If I offered to put you in the 1% right now, you'd turn it down?
And I would pay my share and get rid of the Bush tax cuts immediately.
What do you? Okay, let me ask you a question. Hold on.
Buffett and his
No.
secretary.
What?
I would
Let me ask
pay
you a
my
question.
fair
Let me
share
ask you a
so
question.
that these folks
Hold on.
could pay their student
me ask you a
loans,
question.
could get off of food stamps, could be successful,
ask you a question.
just like you.
Wait,
What are you
hold on.
driving?
Hold on.
They don't have a
Hold on.
car.
What do you think my share is? What percent of my income do you think would be
Get rid
fair?
of the Bush tax.
No. Don't just give me a percentage. No. What percent?
Marginal.
So you think it? Hold on.
He's a
What do
CPA.
you
Ask
think?
the tax
What do you
guy.
think would be
Ask
fair
the tax
if it
guy.
would be-
What's fair for his clients?
What do you think is fair?
national average runs close to 17%. A whole bunch of people, about 50%, don't pay
but how
any
much do you
taxes.
think I should pay? What would be fair for me?
I don't know what your income is. I can't tell you that.
Well, what do you?
I believe in a progressive income tax. That is
What should I
fair.
pay? Okay, well, I love. All right, I'm paying over. All right, well, that would be a huge tax cut for me. I pay much more than 35% of my total income in tax.
What do you think of the
Less than
Buffett
me,
plan?
and I employed her.
Well,
Buffett is full of it because Warren Buffett is the biggest shareholder in Berkshire Hathaway, so he's paying a 35% tax on his profits. Sure, it affects him. He has to pay it.
No.
Not, I thought it's on paper.
But I'm paying. I am giving the government half of what I earn. You think they should take more?
I think we should get rid of the Bush tax cuts.
But that means I would be paying more than half of what I earned the government.
No way you could cut all the expenses you want without
meanwhile-
increasing revenue. There's no way to fix
And
this
meanwhile,
problem.
if you raise my taxes, maybe I'll just decide to sell my business and fire 150 people.
If you've
Why
got-
should I work for free?
If you've got 20,000 clients, you're doing much better than anyone else here.
But why should I? But do you think? Wait, hold on.
I want to share your success.
Do you think I should work for you or for myself?
I'm like you. I'm an entrepreneur. I want you to work for yourself.
Right, but if the government.
But you started out with 2 clients before you had 20,000. You should want to help the next guy.
I am helping the next guy. I'm helping them. I'm helping my clients by giving them services that they want. I'm employing 150 people. How many people do you employ?
I'm in the mortgage business. I wish I employed 150 people.
Well, let's stop. Well, go do it.
The problem is
I'm doing it. I'm doing my share. Why aren't you doing yours?
Unregulated.
And in fact, I'm probably paying more income taxes than everybody around me combined. So I'm paying more than my fair share right now. I'm picking up the slack for a lot of people.
Who can verify that?
But then GE didn't pay any taxes.
Well, look, first of all, we should get rid of the corporate income tax because corporations don't pay taxes. Either their workers pay taxes, their customers pay the tax, or their shareholders. And a lot of the shareholders are elderly people who are trying to live off their retirement savings. Or people. No. Tax people on the individual, the corporate level is a ruse. They're not paying the taxes. They're passing them on. And you're talking about the poor students. Hey, I'm the one that wants to get rid of all these student loans. I don't want the government loaning money to kids to go to college. I don't want them guaranteeing. Nobody. I want tuitions to come down because
New Zealand
than for me to stay here and go to college.
But you know what? If the government stops subsidizing student loans, then the universities would have to slash the prices, and then you can afford to go. You wouldn't need a loan.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you for the answer.
I want quality education.
I don't have a lot of education to argue on these matters, so I am here to educate myself. But my problem is that a lot of people here don't trust corporations. When we give them money back, they say we'll hire more people. Instead, what we have seen is that they take that money and use it to influence government to help themselves.
Because government has the power to dole out. We got to take away the power. But corporations, hold on. Corporations are nothing to fear. All they can do is offer you a product or a service. It's up to you whether or not you want to buy it. They can offer you a job. You don't have to take it. You can work for somebody else. You can work for yourself. You don't have to fear a business
job out there.
Well, then aren't you glad the corporation is there to give you one because there's nothing better out there?
Yeah. Yes. Why not? That makes sense.
No. How are they taking away jobs? Where do you think jobs come from?
When they crashed the economy,
It was crashed because
everybody started doing job cuts. All these corporations were doing job cuts. Even Wall Street.
Here's my question though: where did jobs come from in the first place?
Money they buy. That's where jobs come.
No,
from consumers.
no, they don't come from consumers. Where do
Your company couldn't.
No, where do those consumers get the money? Where do the consumers get the money?
They get the money from working.
Yeah, so the jobs come first, the goods come second.
Yeah, but
after
that,
you're taking all the jobs out, and you're not reinvesting in America, right?
But why are we doing that?
Because the labor's cheaper over there.
No, because the regulations are higher over here. The taxes are higher. Yes, yes, yes.
One more question. Do you believe that Franklin Delano Roosevelt did what he had to do in 1939? Government intervention?
No, he caused the Great Depression. Yes, by doing exactly what Herbert Hoover did. He was the Barack Obama of his day. The reason we had a Great Depression was Roosevelt. He didn't save it. He almost destroyed it. No. And Hoover is, the socialists want to blame it. Hoover did the wrong thing. Hoover was like George Bush. He tried to prop everybody up, bail everybody out. We didn't. Hoover was not a capitalist.
Who are you?
Peter Schiff.
And what do you represent?
The 1%.
Okay, and what is it?
Well, the people who everybody supposedly here wants to tax and regulate in order to theoretically improve the economy.
So are you with some TV station or what?
No, I'm not with a TV station.
My question is, where does the 1% fit in the picture of the crisis that we just went through?
Well,
so you're saying that it's all the fault of the government. What's their role?
My point is, look, if taking money away from the 1% to suspend it is going to hurt the economy. We need capital to grow the economy. We need investments. We need savings. We need production. We need more machines. We need more factories.
What role did Wall Street play in this crisis in your
No, they played a big role. Wall Street drank the alcohol that the Federal Reserve poured. But if there was no Fed pouring the alcohol, if Fannie and Freddie weren't guaranteeing all these mortgages, Wall Street wouldn't have originated them. So it was Wall Street working with government. But the source of the problem was government. Government started. That's how come when I was warning about the crisis back in 2004 and 2005, begging the Fed to raise interest rates, trying to get Fannie and Freddie out of the mortgage guarantee business, nobody wanted to listen to me.
No, it's corporate money that's in politics currently that is controlling the system. That's why you guys have the power you do.
I don't have any power.
World War II is most probably.
But I don't have any power. I'm as powerless as you.
World War II is most probably what brought us out of that depression, and we came out shining because the rest of the world was
actually.
But after that, the interest or the tax rates on the very wealthy were extremely high, and we had an amazing golden era of prosperity in this country.
Let me tell you,
you did not suffer. Plus, you employed many more people than the sector does currently.
Okay,
the financial sector does nothing but manipulate money.
Well, I agree. We need to shrink the financial sector. It gets too much government subsidies. But what ended the Depression was the end of the Second World War, when the government stopped all that spending. It wasn't the war that got us out. It was ending the war. But yes, there were very high taxes after the war, but nobody paid them. There were so many loopholes. Nobody paid those high taxes. People like me are paying much higher taxes today than people were paying in 1945, 1950. In fact, nobody even paid withholding taxes. The average person didn't even pay income taxes until 1943. That's when the withholding tax came in.
My history states that the tax rates were 70, 80, 90.
The rates were there, but nobody paid them. Nobody had that income because there were so many deductions, nobody had to pay them. Now the average person is paying a much higher rate of tax, the average wealthy person. Let's say somebody who's making $5, $10, $20 million a year. If you made the equivalent of that in the 1950s, you paid a lower tax because you had so many deductions, you had no taxes. Now, Well, I make money from my clients. I get money from my clients.
Doesn't it come from capital gains?
No, it comes from ordinary. Some of it comes from capital gains,
So
but
you're paying 15% on capital gains.
But most of my income is in my business, and there I'm paying 38% federal, 7% to the 7. Yeah, well that's. Well, I'm paying it on my total income. You're only paying it on your marginal income.
Peter, let's talk. What is the solution? These poor children are in the cold. If your children in this position, would you like to see your children in this condition?
The solution.
Look at the wind blowing.
The solution is freedom, capitalism, liberty. You know, the Constitution. That's what we need. Free people can succeed. They can prosper. If the government just gets out of the way and lets it happen.
You would not have come here and done this today unless you were a go-getter. And I guarantee you would have been go-getting with a higher tax rate on you, just as you are now. No. You would have made your dad proud. You would have shown how tough you are. You would have been the big guy on the block right now. And we would have helped you do it. But we would also have taken some of the money from you and spread it around, unlike what's going on.
But here's the problem. The money that you take from me is the money I would use to grow the economy. Any money that's taken from me and said, but no, that's
not what you're doing. You're gambling.
No.
You're gambling.
Well,
this is not 1960 when we're investing in
not,
GM, and GM is good for whatever's good for GM is good for the United States. That's not it anymore.
I'm not gambling. I say I'm just helping my clients invest money. Wall Street gambles with money from the Federal Reserve. They're the ones that are trading and proprietary trading.
Well,
I don't do that. But I agree.
I
agree that because of the Fed and because of the government, money that should be invested is being gambled instead. That is the problem. Washington is helping Wall Street bleed Main Street dry.
Cronies like Bill Clinton, who got rid of Glass-Steagall, with corporations and the power of money behind him, are what drives you guys. It's a chicken and egg, an egg and a chicken.
But it's not. But remember, the money that grows the economy is the money that isn't spent. It's savings that drives economic growth. And when you tax the businessman, you're taxing his savings, you're diminishing his ability to grow the economy, to grow his business, and you're sending money to Washington where it's squandered on consumption and government bureaucracy. That's what's destroying the country. You know what the richest county is now in the United States? Washington County. It's now wealthier than Silicon Valley. Because it's all the money going to the bureaucrats. They're raising their pay. All the lobbyists are getting rich because the government is doling out all these favors. Take away the power of government, and you bring the power back to the people.
In the last 5 years, is your income going up or going down in the last 5 years? How much money do you make, and is it increasing?
I think it's increasing, but what's your point? Yeah.
Why is everyone else's annual income stagnating?
A lot of it is because of inflation that the Federal Reserve creates to prop up failing banks or to prop up the government to pay for the social welfare state. But the reason that the middle class is suffering is because the government is destroying the economy. Capitalism benefits most the middle class and the lower class, but we don't have it anymore. That's the problem.
How can you how can you say that it's just the federal government when the people that were in the government, like Ronald Reagan, Secretary of the Treasury, was Don Regan. He was the Secretary of the Treasury then. In the Clinton years, there was Secretary of Treasury Rubin, and these guys were head of Goldman Sachs, head of Citigroup. And so these are the people that are actually making these economic policies.
I agree with you on this. I want to get Wall Street's influence out of Washington.
So this is what this is about. What do you?
So when you're talking about businessmen, you're lumping everybody in the same category as Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan and Morgan Stanley. They're not. Right?
All the transactions that are risky are happening right here on Wall Street.
Yeah, and they're happening with government subsidies. Take those subsidies away. Take the cheap money away from the Fed.
While people in D.C. are protesting at the White House or at Capitol Hill, we here in New York are protesting Wall Street because, like you just agreed with me, they go hand in hand. They're accomplices. They're in bed together. But the people that are in government making these policies came straight from here, went to the government, and then come right back here to make even more money after the policies that they passed that are helping them.
Protesting here ain't gonna do anything.
Why?
It's because but they don't care. As long as government
is even protest more.
As long as government has goodies to hand out, Wall Street's gonna want its share. Stop the government from giving out.
Create the goodies. They're gonna go in government in order to make the laws.
But if you take the government out of it, then the only way they can make money is by benefiting everybody else. Right now, they're making money at the expense expense of other people because they got their government doing their dirty work.
If there was no government at all, then
No, I'm not saying no government at all. I'm saying limited constitutional government.
would not change much because it might even be easier for them to
but there'd be no door to get into. The only way they can
As
get
long
money
as
is
there's
if
a government, there'll be a door to get into.
Who should we protest then?
the White House, the Federal Reserve, Congress, Supreme.
Why does that matter when either way we've started a global thing here and people are really seeing the idea? Doesn't matter where it is when the idea is still getting.
But what we need to be protesting is government. We want our freedom back. We want our prosperity back. And we're not going to get it from government. We're going to get it from ourselves, from capitalism, from individual entrepreneurship. That's what we need. We need the values that the founding fathers bestowed on us. We need to go back to that.
I agree, but I believe you're stuck on the synecdoche of Wall Street. It doesn't matter that it's Wall Street. Because we're protesting here, it's still getting seen everywhere else.
The rap on this movement is that it's anti-capitalist, anti-business, that you guys are all walking around with copies of the Communist Manifesto in your pocket.
At all.
All right, well, clear it up.
I've seen so many Ron Paul supporters and libertarians here, you'd be surprised. You sound like a libertarian yourself, right?
Well, that's what I think.
You sound like a libertarian yourself, right? There's marchers saying end the Feds, exact same things you're saying. You actually sound like a supporter. You sound like a supporter. The basis of this movement.
Yeah, why was the economic advisor who ran for president in 2008?
The basis of this movement, right?
Yes.
That's great. The basis of this movement, right, is that the Wall Street and the government are too closely tied together. And you sound like you're against the same issue. So I really don't see what you're down here trying to explain. Like, can you?
Because I want to make sure. Yeah, but we have to focus our anger and our outrage on the government that's made it all possible.
Federal Reserve is like
what's happening. Yeah, what's happening on Wall Street is a consequence of this power emanating from Washington. You got to cut off the head of the snake.
So
that's how you kill it.
Should we not protest here? Should we go?
Of course. Who wouldn't want a bailout? If the government came and offered to bail you out, you'd take it. The problem is the government shouldn't be able to offer the money. Look, I wanted every bank that bet wrong to fail.
If Ron Paul is so different, how come he always casts his vote with the Republicans?
What?
If Ron Paul is that different, how come he always casts his vote with the Republicans?
He doesn't
always.
He doesn't always. No, he's very independent. He's very independent.
For medical doctor, wait. For medical doctor, how come he says that if a person has no medical care, you might as well drop dead?
That's not what he said.
That's what he said.
No, he didn't. I listened to it.
No.
What Ron Paul said.
If you have no health care, you might as well drop
No.
dead.
First of all, before the government got involved in health care, there was much more access and it was much less expensive. And what happened was Ron Paul pointed out that when he was a doctor a long time ago, doctors took care of the poor for free. Nobody died if they were sick. The problem is the government has run up the cost of health care so much through the tax code, through Medicare, through Medicaid. Anything the government touches, it ruins. It drives up the price. It drives down the quality.
Obviously, he never took the Hippocratic oath.
Yeah, I wish the government would take the Hippocratic oath and do no harm.
Paul should take, because he casts all his votes with the Republicans. So he
doesn't cast all his votes with Republicans. No, he's the most independent voter out there. Check his record. Check his record. Check his record.
You're stuck then. How do we live? Yes, we need corporations to a certain extent. We need business to a certain extent. We need government to a certain extent. But now you're stuck. Where does one go? Like, what is the limit? What is the limit on business? What is the limit on government? Where do we put those limits?
First of all, corporations are simply businesses that incorporated. And corporations are just individuals that got together to run a business. I mean, that's all they are.
Individuals? Should they have corporate personhood?
Well, there are legal rights that a corporation has as a fictitious person, but apart from that, they're people. Yes, it's fair. Because what the corporate structure does is it enables businesses to raise more capital and grow bigger because you shield the shareholders from some of the liability. So you make it. It's in the interest of the whole economy because it makes it easier for businesses to expand and make the investments necessary. No. They only do that because the government forces them to, because the taxes and regulations are too higher. Because remember, the corporations owe an interest to their shareholders. That's what they are. They're just like you. They're not there to serve society. They're there to make a profit. But the result is that they end up serving society through the invisible hand.
That's very short-sighted, my friend. The reason why is because, yes, it helps the shareholders in the very near future, right? But where are we now? This whole shit show is because of the fact that people weren't thinking long term, and
But
now
they weren't, because the government got them all liquored up with cheap money and government guarantees. And you know what? It's going to get a lot worse. You guys ain't seen nothing yet. You know, wait till you see how much worse it's going to be in a year or two. There's going to be more unemployment, and then you're going to start to see prices really go up as the dollar collapses in value and food gets a lot more expensive. Healthcare.
Wait, time out. You're still saying that the government is totally the only person to blame. However, corporations are still complicit in their guilt if they're the ones that are doing whatever cheaper.
Look,
for
I
their
said,
shareholders.
look, a lot of people on Wall Street acted recklessly, and they should have been held accountable. They should have been allowed to lose money. They shouldn't have been bailed out. But my question is, why did they do these foolish things? You know, President Bush said Wall Street got drunk. He was right. They were all stinking drunk. But the question was, where did they get all that alcohol? Why were they drunk?
But you're blaming the alcoholic for being enabled.
No, I'm blaming the bartender for liquoring them up. I'm blaming Alan Greenspan. I'm blaming the Fed and the government for doing it.
Aren't they both at guilt, though? They're both at guilt, and you're just saying no, only one is at guilt.
I'm not excusing them.
Okay.
But I'm saying that if you want to stop the behavior, you got to go to Washington. You got to cut it off at the source. And you can't say it's capitalism. If people are saying capitalism is failing, it's not working, we haven't even tried it in decades. We need capitalism. That's what does work. We know that works.
Okay. Right now, what about the fact that 18 of the members of the board that have connections to the bailouts, 18 members of the Federal Reserve Board that have connections to the Federal Reserve are sitting right now on companies that receive part of the $700 billion TARP bailouts? What about the conflict of interest that exists between Wall Street and the Federal Reserve?
You're 100% right. It's a disgrace. You know, when I was on television, when they first proposed, I was against TARP. I said, look, if there's a bank that is going to fail, you let it fail. You let the shareholders lose money. Let the bondholders lose money. Because if you bail them out now, it's a moral hazard, and we're just going to get more of that bad behavior in the future. You know, capitalism means private losses and private profits. It doesn't mean private profits and socialized losses.
Wall Street and the Federal Reserve, can you help educate people here as to why we believe there's a conflict of interest between the interests of Wall Street and the Fed?
Well, the problem is the banks are keeping interest rates artificially low to prop up the speculative activity on Wall Street. What we actually need in this country is higher interest rates, not lower interest rates, because that'll take the money out of Wall Street, put it back on Main Street. Businessmen can't borrow money at these low interest rates. It's all going to the government through guaranteed debt, through the treasury market, through the corporate bond market. There's no real capital available for Main Street. But if we let interest rates go up, number one, people will stop spending and start saving again because they can get a decent interest rate on their savings, and there'll be more capital on Main Street to fund new businesses, to produce things here, to hire people here. But of course, if we want to do all that, we need to get the government to repeal a lot of the rules and regulations that have artificially increased the cost of doing business and hiring people in this country.
Wait, I want to understand, because you seem to agree.
Who's new? Who hasn't asked me?
Yeah, I'm from Madison, Wisconsin. I flew in today, and deregulation is what caused this mess. In Wisconsin, when we had 150,000 people in the street marching against Governor Scott Walker, I personally was integral in occupying our state capitol. And I got to tell you, he was funded by the Koch brothers. They're selling off our state. They're cutting wages. They're shipping in low pages and unbenefited jobs. You're sitting on trillions and trillions of dollars of wealth and not investing it back in the
Hold on. Which regulations do you think that were repealed caused the crisis?
Let's start with Glass-Steagall. Let's go back to Glass-Steagall.
Okay, that's one regulation. But you know how many other regulations were passed? In addition to that, they have net piled on a lot more regulations. So they repealed
tax rate for the top 1% back to where it was when they made more than $2 million. That next dollar was taxed at 74%.
Wait a minute.
How about we do that?
So you think that the government should take 74% of my money?
I think if you're making more than $2 million, I think that's when we had the biggest growth in the economy, is when it discouraged millionaires from paying themselves huge bonuses. They reinvested it back in their companies. They created jobs for the workers, and instead they sit on their cash now, and they let the rest of us drown in debt, and then sit on the street and go homeless, and it's ridiculous.
So you think that I should pay 70% of my income above $2 million in tax?
$2 million a year?
Yes. Do you
Yeah,
think?
I think your next dollar should be taxed at 74%.
Okay, so if that's the deal, you know what I would do? Once my income got to $2 million, I would stop working for the year. I would furlough my employees and say, you know what? I've made my limit. I'm not going to work for 30 cents on the dollar. I'm playing golf. I'm going fishing. I'll see you next February. How about that?
How come that didn't apply in the 1970s and 1960s?
Because nobody paid those taxes back then. You know how many? I would much rather.
The economy was booming when the effective tax.
Because no one paid those high taxes.
Direct correlation with the national debt and the lowering of the effective tax rate on the wealthiest people in this country. You're not fooling anybody.
Well, first of all,
statistics. We've all read it. Okay. There is no such thing as trickle-down economy. The only thing that trickles down is you guys.
The income tax didn't even start until 1913. So before that, there were no income taxes at all. And we built the wealthiest country in the world. We had the Industrial Revolution.
The Great Depression.
We know though.
What are you talking about?
No.
1913. We had the Great Depression.
No,
because it was the lowest effective tax rates. That's why we had
Well,
Hoover bills.
Well, first of all, the Depression was in the 30s, not 1913.
That's when it began because there was no income tax rate on the wealthy.
The income tax is not why we had a depression. What happened was the Federal Reserve printed too much money in the 1920s. They created a real estate bubble and a stock market bubble. And then when it burst, Herbert Hoover, instead of letting the free market work, came in with all this government props and bailouts that tried to interfere, and he created the depression. And then Roosevelt made it great by interfering even more by taking Hoover's entire plan and expanding it.
Wrong.
No.
That's wrong.
You only think it's wrong because you got brainwashed in a government school.
I didn't bring them up. I can read studies from the economic policy. It's pretty simple.
You haven't read any of my stuff.
I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this right now. When FDR raised the effective tax rate for millionaires throughout this country, we saw the biggest expansion of the middle class and elimination of poverty in this country. We saw growth.
You're just making this stuff up. This is just revisionist history.
Well,
All right, let's talk about now.
The suburbs in America, when were they built?
How would taking money away from businessmen, let's say the government was going to take 70% of my income away, the income that I would use to invest in.
Your income after you make
Right.
$2 million.
All right. So that is the money that I would.
$2
Okay.
million.
Okay. So the money that. So let's say I'm making $10 million. The government says, okay, we're going to take $7 million away from you. Right. And now, how is that going to help the country by taking money away from me that I might have invested in growing my business?
Yourself that money and sitting it in some bank account across these, you're going to reinvest it in
No. But what do you think? What do you think the banks do with the money? They loan it out to businesses. Where do you think credit comes from? If you take money away from the people who earn it and save it and send it to Washington, it's going to get squandered, and you're going to destroy the incentives to grow the economy.
lowered the tax rates in the 1980s, and they effectively went down. You see a decline you see an increase in the national debt, and you see a decline.
That's because
in the middle class.
No, but that's because the government kept spending money. You can't blame the problems on the tax cuts.
I know.
You got to blame.
We should spend money on the homeless and the poor and the sick. We should.
That's not where the money was going.
I just want to say something real short. I'm also at 1%, and I think you're making us look really bad.
How do you figure?
Because I think your facts are wrong, your logic is wrong. I don't want to get into a long discussion, but I don't think that you're helping.
Well, my facts aren't wrong, but as a member of the 1%, what do you think? Do you think your taxes should be raised?
Yes, I do.
Well, I mean,
for a long time, you know what happened?
what percent of your income do you pay in taxes?
10%.
All right, well, you're not in the 1% because I'm paying 50%. So you're only paying 10% in taxes?
It has to do with how you invest your money, doesn't it?
Well, I'm not paying 10%. I'm paying 50. All right, well, how would you like to pay 50% like me?
I would.
Oh, really? Well, then why not write a bigger check when you pay your taxes instead of paying 10%?
I would be I think.
Well, no one's stopping you from paying more taxes.
Excuse me, can I do this? Can I do this? I want to tell you something. After World War II, do you know what the tax rate was? You know what the marginal tax rate was after World War II?
It got up to 90%.
It was 90%.
Yeah, but nobody paid it. But before 1913, it was zero.
Yeah, and for many, many, many years until recent history, it was around 70%. It has only come down from 70% over the last 20, 30 years.
Yes, but there were
many years people did not go play golf when they got to 70%. They did not go to the beach. They kept working.
They didn't pay. No, nobody paid. Nobody actually paid the 70%. There were so many loopholes and deductions.
I'm glad you're talking, but I think there's many other 1%ers who would strongly disagree with you.
Well, I can tell you this. Most people that make a lot of money, they're not going to work for 30 cents on the dollar. They're going to enjoy their free. You don't know anybody who works for 30 cents on the dollar. You know people who are going to work their butts off to keep 30 cents?
A lot of time in Europe, and trust me, there's a lot of people who work very hard there, and marginal tax rates are.
No, they're not. They're not paying those kind of taxes. They're not.
True. I lived in Europe. There are plenty of people in Europe who believe in investing in the state and being good citizens. You're shooting American exceptionalism, this American exceptionalism line that you're some kind of special cat. You're not, man. But the reason that I'm here has nothing to do with the history of income tax in this country, and it has everything to do with the fact that no one has been held responsible for the financial folly that brought this country down.
We should hold some of these people, like Alan Greenspan, like Senator Chris Dodd or Senator Barney Frank, or we should hold some of these people. Instead, we promote them. Look at Tim Geithner. He was the head of the New York Fed, and now we made him Secretary of the Treasury.
Let's take turns talking, okay? Yeah, let's bring somebody down. I don't know who it is. You seem to have very strong ideas about who you think it is, but let's bring somebody to justice.
Well, I've got a lot of credit.
The law, I go to jail. If the CEO of Chase breaks the law, he gets a bonus.
I agree with you. But I have a lot of credibility on this because I wrote a book predicting the financial crisis, the bursting out, crash proof. So, well,
book about the downfall.
No, it was very hard to do because very few people did it. Are you kidding me? People were laughing on me on national television when I told them what was going to happen. Yeah, very few people predicted this, and I predicted it because I understood how government policy was creating the problems.
Promoting your book. All I'm saying is that somebody needs to be brought to justice.
I agree. I agree with you.
Any other questions? Hold on.
Are you going to come with us on our next Occupy the Fed march?
I don't know. Who's going to be there?
A lot of people. We already had one. We started here. We're trying to educate the people here because they didn't know that the Fed is a lot of the problem, printing the money out of thin air backed by nothing.
The Fed is a big part of the problem. And in fact, if it wasn't for the Fed, the government couldn't spend all this money because the Fed is buying up all these bonds, which is allowing the government to plunge the people deeper into debt and is preventing the economy from correcting itself. We have got serious structural economic problems, and we're only making them worse. And the Fed is helping the government make it worse by buying up all those bonds. Because what's growing right now is not our economy, but our government. And the bigger the government gets, the poorer we all get because we have to support that government.
So they're like the drug dealer. I mean, that's all they're doing is supplying the...
We're addicted to cheap money, and they keep feeding the addiction, and we're going to overdose if we don't change.
Okay, so 11/22 is our next Occupy the Fed march, and you and your brother are welcome to join us.
Well, maybe we'll be there.
That's actually my question because you seem, I'm sorry, you seem down here. I mean, at first it looks like you're antagonizing us a little bit, but you actually seem to agree with a lot of stuff that we're saying, even if with some other.
I agree.
You disagree strongly, and I disagree with some of the things you say.
Look, I'm
strongly.
afraid that a lot of people here, if we don't change, they're not going to stay here. People are going to leave the country looking for opportunity because we're going to destroy it. If we don't roll back the government and we don't get rid of all these regulations and taxes, there's going to be no opportunity here for the young people.
Okay, see, that part, for example, I disagree with. I don't think that we need to roll back regulations. I think that's part of the problem. However, you do still seem to agree, and you said you agreed when I mentioned the fact that they're one and the same. Wall Street and the government is one and the same. People that are in D.C. are trying to protest and start the Occupy D.C. movement, and they're protesting the government. But us here, we're protesting Wall Street because it's also the government since, like I told you before, they managed to find themselves seats in the government.
Right, but
and then
you're not going to change it from here. It has to be changed legislatively and in the ballot box because it's because of the rules and regulations that emanate from Washington. Wall Street is just trying to get its piece of that pie.
You don't think that us being here has the government listening and following?
No, but the appearance is that you guys are against capitalism and business, and this is the symbol.
That's a tiny minority. Those are the diehard extremists here, and maybe some other people that are not extremists but are still pro-socialist or whatever, but I'm willing to bet the majority of people here are pro-capitalism. I'm pro-capitalism, but I don't think that means that.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. That's why I wanted to come down and clear up these misunderstandings because the movement is getting a bad rep.
A lot of people here
it's a Marxist movement
here for different reasons, but there's a fundamental discontent. And the fundamental discontent with the way things are, with the state of the economy, and also with the ease with which people in government and in Wall Street go back and forth. And that's the main, and you said you agreed with that they should not be able to just walk right in the government and sit.
Well,
sit on it.
I don't care if they walk in, but if they have no power, if they have no special interest to dole out, it won't matter if they're there. But if you limit the power of government, they can't do all this harm.
If somebody from Goldman Sachs manages to become Secretary of the Treasury, you don't think that he's going to try to push and advise the president and the whole cabinet on ways to benefit Wall Street, but his sector where he comes from?
But if you take away the power of the government to benefit Wall Street, he can talk until he's blue in the face and nothing's going to happen.
He'll just try to change it. He'll try to.
The regulations are only enforced against the 99%. The 1%, it's selectively enforced just against us. So
no, I'm talking about you take away the subsidies, you take away the cheap money from the Fed, and you let Wall Street know, you let a bank know that if you invest poorly and you go under, you're going to lose. You let the bondholders know if you loan money to somebody that doesn't pay you back, you're out of luck. The government's not going to come in and subsidize your losses. Let business know.
But the main reason that the government is so eager to come in and help is because their economic advisors are these guys.
Yeah.
And that's a fundamental.
They're getting a lot of bad advice, that's for sure.
Well, from these guys because their whole job is to maximize profits and socialize risk and just, take as many risks as possible as long as they can satisfy the shareholders.
But they can only socialize the risks if the government lets them. So we got to stop the government.
But would you be in favor of higher taxes unless if they do socially responsible things, you get tax breaks?
No, well, I don't want higher taxes. We have too much taxes.
Yeah, but if you got higher taxes, but you got way lower taxes if you invested in socially responsible acts.
No, but then I don't want the government deciding what's socially responsible. I don't want the government picking winners and losers.
We vote on what's socially responsible.
With your dollar, no, you vote on it with the money that you spend. If you want to patronize a socially responsible business,
government, if what we say and what we vote means
we have government.
Only the money in our pockets means anything.
Government is to protect our rights, to protect our liberty, our life, our property. That's why government is there, to secure liberty. That's why we instituted it. So all the rest of it is up to us.
Tax breaks for investing in rights and socially responsible.
No, I don't want the government determining. That's how we get stuff like Solyndra, where Obama decides to guarantee $500 billion worth of debt, and now we taxpayers, or $500 million, we're eating it because Obama decided that was socially responsible, and we lost all our money.
No, I'm not agreeing that it should be insured. I'm saying that you should get lower taxes on money that goes to
I want everybody to be taxed equally, and I want to lower the taxes on everybody because the money is much better in the hands of the people who earned it than the bureaucrats in Washington, because all they're going to do is use it to get reelected, and it's going to hurt the economy.
But aren't the Wall Street people backing the people who are trying to get into government?
Because they want the power that they can get back. They want the special favors. We got to take away the ability. Yes, but you got to take away the ability of government to give out special favors. If we followed the Constitution, there'd be no special favors to give out. There'd be no perks.
I agree, but in that case, my fundamental point with you right now is that you should be joining this whole movement, and that the people that are listening to what the stream, live stream, or whatever, that are conservative might actually agree with a lot of us, because you all seem to think that we're anti-cap. I mean, who here is pro-capitalism? Who here is pro-capitalism? All right, that's a lot of hands. I mean,
yeah, I know. I mean, look, when I ran for Senate,
down here, even if it's for slightly different reasons.
Well, I was at a lot of Tea Party rallies, and when I ran for Senate, I had a lot of Tea Party support, and I've been saying, hey, we got to get these movements together because in many cases they have the same sympathies. Yes, there's going to be the extremists out there that have a Marxist, socialist type agenda, but there are a lot of people that actually understand some of these problems.
Well, a lot of people here are not. There are very few Marxists here.
I want a system that works, whether you call it capitalism or not. It doesn't matter to me. So I just want a system that works.
Well, capitalism does work until government interferes, and the problem is the government interferes, things get bad, and then the government blames it on capitalism. It's not capitalism's fault. It is the government. Adam Smith.
And what did he say about government intervention when the market fails? When you have market failure, what does he say about government intervention?
Well, they always blame the government.
Oh, going back to the facts. Wait, isn't he not the godfather of modern
He is the founder of economics,
okay,
correct.
So what did he say when there's
Tell
market
me what he
failure?
said.
What did he say about market failure?
What did he
say?
say?
Government intervenes. Government has to intervene.
No, government intervenes to cause the failure. That's the problem.
No, that's not what he said.
Yes,
no,
well,
you know I'm right.
No, I don't know you're right. I don't know you're right. No, you didn't.
It's not capitalism when you have monopolies.
No,
that's anti-capitalism.
no, but government creates but it's government.
Monopolies running it.
No, but government licenses the monopolies. Without government, monopolies wouldn't exist unless they were giving people the best possible deal.
Who's our government right now?
Not me, yeah. But there are a lot of people that are owning the government because the government has the influence to sell.
And that's what we're protesting. By the trickle-down theory that's been in place.
It hasn't been in place. It's gotten a bad name. No.
What's the federal tax rate for the 1%?
Yeah, I'm paying half my income in taxes. No, if I earn, let me correct you. If I earned my money 30 years ago, I would pay a much lower tax than I do today. Hold on. No, if I earned my money 30 years ago, I would pay a much lower total tax than I pay today because I have far fewer deductions and exemptions than were abound back then. And 100 years ago, the entrepreneurs paid no federal taxes, and that's when we built a vibrant economy. That's when we created the whole middle class. It was because we were free.
Unions built the middle class.
No, they didn't.
Unions built the middle class.
Unions helped destroy all the industries that they infected.
Capitalists, like
workers, were paid a lot more before unions.
Morals and act morally and not immoral.
Capitalism is moral. Capitalism is the only moral system. Socialism is.
People running are not capitalists and they're immoral. That's why you have the conditions that exist today. So third world is
How can you expect morals out of a society that was built on greed and hope?
Well, there's nothing immoral about greed. I mean, everybody wants things.
I kind of agree with that, but don't you think it should be kept in check?
The free market keeps it in check.
No, it does not, because the free market allows them, especially at this point where people are making so much money.
But remember, in a free market, people are greedy, but they're also fearful. They want to make money, but they're afraid of losing money. The government comes in and subsidizes the losses. That's what lets greed cause problems when the government takes away the risk.
Yes, exactly. When they do subsidize the risk, that does cause a problem. But don't you think that in itself, the free market on its own, when it gets to a point, people are just going to try to maximize profits.
But what's wrong with? But how do you maximize profits in a free society?
It depends. It depends what sector you're in.
The way you
but the way
look,
they did it here, was to take people's mortgages.
No, but that's government. That's government intervention with subsidized mortgages.
Private firms here.
But the government was backing
people's mortgages
because the government guaranteed them. Look,
they had nothing to do with
if a businessman wants to maximize his profits without government help, without special perks, what do they have to do? They have to figure out what consumers want and find the most efficient way to give it to them. And the more you satisfy. They do. I deal with consumers who want my help. But yes, there are a lot of financiers who do nothing but speculate with money they get from the Fed on products that are insured by the government. That is not capitalism. That is destroying capitalism.
Why are you against unions? I just need an explanation.
Well, I'm not against unions. What I'm against is when unions have special laws that help enable them to extort money from employers and help drive them out of business. I mean, unions.
Isn't that just in response to the corporations doing the same thing to them?
No, they're not doing the same thing.
Okay.
Look, it's not. Look, it's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that all the jobs. Hold on. It's not a coincidence. Yeah. It's not a coincidence that all the companies that were heavily unionized are the ones that have gone bankrupt. The unions played a big role in bankrupting these companies. But I will tell you something.
Walk away from a system that was working because it had faults. So
but I will tell you. I will tell you. Let me tell you. Hold on. Let me tell you. Ford Motor Company paid its workers more money before there were any unions. Before there was any minimum wage, Ford workers who were on the factory lines got paid more money in 1914 than they do today, adjusted for inflation. Much more money. No, and that was because of capitalism. He paid his workers.
With the system doesn't mean you try not to work within the system and fix it.
No.
You don't walk away from capitalism because you feel like it's broken.
No.
You try to fix it.
No, but capitalism is.
Unions walk away from
capitalism doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to be restored. We don't have it anymore.
We don't have it together. We don't have it because there's monopoly. Right?
No, it's not. We don't have it. We don't have it because we have too much government regulation and taxation.
The government enables monopolies like the Fed.
Right. Well, if. Well, what? Okay. First of all, what monopoly are you talking? No. What monopoly are you talking about?
Do you feel like Chase has kind of taken over?
Chase,
a bank?
They're not a monopoly. There are plenty of banks. But when you have a monopoly, government gives them a license. But look, but that's not a monopoly. There's
have to be a monopoly, but when you're dealing with 5 major banks, 3 or 4.
But I agree. The banks get government subsidies. I want to take those subsidies away from banks. I don't want.
The bailout shouldn't have happened. Are you saying the bailout shouldn't have?
No, I was against them at the time. They should have.
Totally.
But look, I want to get the government. Look, I don't want the government.
Fall.
Right. I don't want the government.
Step up. I didn't hear anyone stepping up and saying, I don't want the government getting involved in these rich guys.
I stepped up. I was there. But look, I don't want the government guaranteeing your bank account. I want the banks to have to prove to you that they're sound. I don't want the government guaranteeing that account so you don't care what they do with your money. I want to get the government out of banking. That's the problem.
So what we need is educated consumers, because these libertarian ideals, they work when you have an educated consumer base. But the problem is many Americans do not have the type of fiscal education that they would need to make the kind of decisions that would promote their lifestyle. And when there only is a Walmart in 50 miles of your house and you are only shopping at Walmart, and maybe you don't even know what Walmart does, and maybe you disagree with Walmart if you knew about Walmart. But so what we need to do is promote education and fiscal education to create smart consumers.
Yeah, well, I think you should give the average American a little bit more credit. People, I think, can make the best decisions for themselves. I think people can decide for themselves better than Washington deciding for them. I think people will make good choices. You know, people are going to shop around. They're going to look for a bargain. They're going to try to spend as little money as possible to get as much value as they can. I have confidence that the market will work.
Are you okay with us importing all of our goods from and borrowing money from communist China to support those lower production rates?
No, I would.
The American consumer?
No, I'm not okay with it. It's terrible, and it wouldn't happen if we had a freer economy. We would produce these things ourselves.
Regulations today, though.
No, we have a lot more, and we have a lot.
Do we have more regulations today than post-American Depression?
Yes, and we have a lot more than China. There's more capitalism in communist China than there is in America. That's the problem.
What's the average wage for a Chinese worker?
So you don't believe in minimum wage?
No, it should be zero. It should be abolished. Absolutely not. Why do you
feel about slavery?
But what does the minimum wage have to do with slavery?
I don't know, I'm just asking if you're for it. I mean, in a capitalist society, that's ideal, right? If you don't pay your workers,
well, actually,
on your P&L line, your employment costs.
Actually, I'll give you a little bit of history. Hold on. Slavery is bad business, because slaves don't work very hard. It's much more economical to pay workers. They work a lot harder.
This country was built on the backs of slaves.
No, it wasn't.
They actually worked pretty hard.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't built on the backs of slaves. But no, it wasn't. You think there was slavery up north? No. But we had the people working. The people that were working in the factories weren't slaves. The South would have been better if it was paying people, but that's a whole other story. But as far as the minimum wage, all the minimum wage does is set a level below which people are not allowed to work. The minimum wage just destroys employment opportunities for the unskilled workers. You know, you can't hire somebody if they don't have enough productivity.
$7.25 an hour, there's someone less skilled.
Well, first of all,
there are people that deserve less than $7.25 an hour.
Well, first of all, it's not just $7.25 because you got to pay payroll taxes and
I'm a small business owner. I understand. I'll add 25% on.
Yeah, so let's say $10. Yes, there are people who don't have enough productivity to be worth $10 an hour. They don't. Now, a lot of them are young. They're 15, 16, 17. But you know what? If they can get a job at $4 or $5 an hour, maybe by the time they're 20, they'll be able to make $15 or $20 an hour. But they never get their first job because we've priced them out of the market.
It's not true in my experience. Not at all. I would say most of the people who start at minimum wage or slightly better are in that. I don't tend to hire 15 and 16-year-olds, but definitely of the 17, 18, 19-year-olds entering college age and move up from there. I think that's
plenty. Look, I went to the movies this Saturday night, and I had to wait on this long line on a Saturday night to get popcorn because there was only one person working behind the counter. Meanwhile, there were 5 other stations. There was nobody there. Now, why? Because the theater can't afford to hire anybody. You think, what would it be so horrible if we let them hire some kids to work there? Because the wages are too high. They have to come down. You can't hire somebody if it's too expensive.
People can barely live off the wages they're making now, and you
want
to lower them?
You know, if you're a student and you want a job on a weekend, you don't need to support a family. You just need some extra bucks.
But what if you need to pay for college? And what if you have loans? And what if it's cheaper to go somewhere? It's cheaper for me to go out of this country and get an education.
Unfortunately, but that's because the government has driven up the cost.
Are you actually saying that people should be making lower than minimum wage?
I think there should be no minimum wage, and people should make whatever they can make. I mean, right now, the minimum wage, no, they wouldn't. I mean, first of all, I don't even employ anybody at the minimum. Everybody I employ is way above the minimum wage. You think I would pay them all minimum wage if I could, but they'd all quit. No.
Minimum wage laws by going outside of the country.
No.
Essentially creates slavery.
No, it's not.
And that's where we
No.
buy all of our products from these companies
But
that circumvent the law.
no, but if you,
We know how
a
much
voluntary
Nike would pay.
a voluntary relationship is not slavery. If I offer somebody a job and they take it, that's not
What if they
slavery.
have no
They're
choice?
free to quit.
What if they have no choice?
No, they always have a
I
choice.
mean, Nike, for example, okay, you say we can abolish the minimum wage, but we know how much Nike would be willing to pay people to make their shoes. They'd be willing to pay them 19 cents.
Look, Singapore has no minimum wage, and they have higher wages than we do, and no unemployment, and they have a booming economy. You don't need a minimum wage. Minimum wage destroys jobs, particularly for the youngest people, for the low-skilled people. Why is it that we all pump our own gas?
Has been stagnant and like
Yeah, because we don't have.
The top 1% has been going up and rising way out of pace with
Yes.
the income for everyone else.
That's because of the problems we talked about. Government is too involved. Government is doing that through subsidies, through banking, through the Federal
How's a
Reserve.
government subsidy preventing a company from paying me more money?
Because they're increasing the cost of hiring you. Because of all the rules and all the regulations, you have no idea how expensive it is to hire people. When
it can't cost them that much.
It
They're
does.
paying them, the top 1%,
No,
the executives are paying themselves so much more money.
When I
So they
ran,
must have- they must be making a
when
lot
I
more
ran
money.
for Senate, I talked to a lot of small businessmen, and they say, I don't want to hire anybody. They do whatever they can. They'll outsource. They'll use a machine. They'll get a temp agency. People don't want the government headache of becoming an employer. The minute you're an employer, there's so many rules and regulations. They're all over you, and they can
That's
sue
in
you.
order to protect us. In order
But
to
they
protect the
protected
workers.
the
To
workers
protect
out
us
of
from
jobs.
being abused,
But you're
from overworking us and paying us nothing.
You know what
So
protects?
that's why we
No.
have unions. And
What
that's why,
what protects the workers from being abused is they can quit. Competition.
But
They got
in
another.
a poor job market. in this
Go
job
to another.
market,
No.
Why would I quit my job in this job market?
Well, then maybe your employer is doing you a favor then by giving you a job.
No, but they're giving me a job on terms that are unfair to me. But I have no other choice. I have
No,
other choice.
but if they're giving you the if you say that, hey, I can't quit because the guy that's hiring me now is making me a better deal than anybody else, he's doing you a favor. He's giving you your best option.
He's making me a better deal. He's making the only deal because.
Well, then
all
be
the jobs
glad
are
he's
lost.
there. And what
I'm
if
glad
you?
he's there, but I wish that he would be more fair. That's
Well,
it.
what's fair? I mean, if you're
I mean,
worth
what
more,
would be
he'll pay
fair
it.
would be for the management of a company to not get paid so much more
Well, no.
than the workforce. I mean, I understand. Okay,
But
there's a
you're
hierarchy.
free. Look, you're
There's a
free to
hierarchy.
quit and start your own business if you think you can do better
What
on
if
your
I
own.
don't have the funds to do that yet?
Well, then
I
be
just need-
glad.
I just need to support my family. That's
But
it.
then be glad that you got a job. And you know, if the
I'm
government,
glad that,
but if the
it comes
government
about
comes-
being fair. I mean, you had slaves. That
But this is not
no,
slavery is wrong.
No,
This is
but
not
you're, the
slavery.
principle that you're advocating. You had slavery back then, where slaves would
Because the
prefer to
slave-
be enslaved rather than to roam the
No,
streets
the
and get
slave
killed or
couldn't quit.
hunted.
The slave had no choice. There was a guy
No,
with
they
a
could-
whip standing over him. Huh?
Neither can people buried under mountains and mountains of debt.
Well, how'd they
Created
get?
a
How'd
nation
they
of
get all
debt
that debt?
Government
Government subsidized loans.
If a
gave
slave
all
ran
that
away,
debt.
it would either starve to death or be killed or re-enslaved. And today, if you run away from a job, you might just starve to death and be homeless. It's basically the same thing. That's why, because of the job market and the way it is, and the high unemployment and underemployment, a lot of people have no choice but to take on the shittiest job they can find just because it's there.
But if it wasn't there, then they'd be in even worse shape. So be glad the shittiest job is there.
No, we're glad it's there, but what about it being more fair? What do you
But
think
it
about
is
that?
Fair. It is fair. And if the government, and if you go and say, well, let's force the employer to pay me more. What if he says, you know what? Then I'm just going to fire you because I'm not going to pay you more.
That's immoral when he gets paid so much money.
But
Couldn't he
no.
see some of his income
No.
and still be a rich
The
millionaire?
employer doesn't get paid. He pays himself. I pay myself. Nobody pays
with
me.
the money from your workforce, because
I
productivity in this
generate
country.
it. But
productivity-
also, how about this? You know, when your boss hires you, if he loses money, he doesn't come back and say, hey, you know, I had a bad month, I lost money. Why don't you write me a check and give me back some of
he
your
fires
wages?
you or
No, but he doesn't.
decreases your wage.
But he doesn't go backwards and say, hey, write me a check to pay for my losses. The boss only gets paid after all the workers get their share. They only get what's
But then
left
he
over.
fires them. If a company's making less money, the boss
After-
rarely lowers his own wage.
No, but after the
his
fact.
own wage.
After the fact. But initially, The employer doesn't know if he's going to make any money. He has no idea if there's going to be anything left over at the end of the day. He has to pay all of his expenses, all the overhead, all the workers. He only makes money if there's any money left over. Nobody pays the boss. He pays himself.
Yeah, through his workforce. But
he
without, he has a workforce. So
no,
yeah, if the head of GE or whatever,
without the employer, there is no workforce. Somebody has to organize it. Somebody has to put it together. It's like he's the conductor of the orchestra. Without the conductor, there's no music.
Well, no, he has managers that conduct it for him.
But who's running the managers?
Well, he is supposedly, but once you set up a company, after a certain point, it runs itself. It runs itself.
No, it doesn't.
And, yeah, it does. And all you have to do basically is sit back and take in the profits.
Oh, yeah. It's not as easy as you think.
He's got an interesting question.
Okay.
So what is your answer to your answer to companies that pay bonuses to CEOs of companies that fail?
No, okay, now this is something you got to take up with the shareholders. See, the shareholders are paying those bonuses, and I think, look, I wouldn't want to own stock in a company that's paying out big bonuses to managers. So, but you vote with your feet. No one that's the shareholder problem. That money comes from shareholders. So what I'm upset about is when the government takes taxpayer money and bails. No, it's the shareholders. Now, some of them might be poor. I don't know who owns the stock.
It's not the shareholders or the board members?
Well, the board members are voting the bonuses, but the shareholders are approving the board, and the shareholders can sell their stock if they don't like what the company is doing.
It's the whole system then. It's the whole structure that's complicit in the state of things as they are now. But the point I was trying to get at before with you being down here is just that, once again, would you recommend people that might be listening to you to kind of join into this movement, even if they believe different things in us? If, as you expressed earlier, you still had this fundamental sense that things are messed up and aren't fair.
But you want to join it.
The government is the problem, as is Wall Street,
right.
as are the people
No,
here.
I agree with that, but what we don't want, because there's a lot of people that want more from government. Government, do this, spend this, provide this. The government has nothing. It only has what it takes. And when it takes from one person and gives to somebody else,
and Social Security,
we get it.
What's wrong with that?
No, but we get health care from the market, from capitalism. That's where we get good health care, not from the government. Because of government involvement. That's why it's so expensive. Anything that we want. Look at this phone. Did the government give you that phone? No, but capitalism produced that phone.
Well,
all the things that work well come from capitalism. The prices of these phones are coming down every year because of capitalism. No, the government
subsidized the industries that created
No,
these
the government
technologies.
didn't subsidize those industries.
Yeah,
It taxed those industries.
A lot of these things come from the military, which
No.
That's
not.
a fact. That's a fact.
No,
It's
that's.
a fact.
Yeah. Huh? Well, we want to take away its power and then get rid of it.
I have a question. I'm a Ron Paul supporter. I would have voted for you if I lived in Connecticut and ran. But I do have a question. How do you explain in a free market capitalistic system which we both support, I think the folks around here might agree that when Wall Street created the mortgage derivative and then the CDOs, credit default swaps rather, off of that, I mean, that was free market run amok.
Well,
and that is where we are now,
right,
with
but if
trillions of dollars on these banks.
Right, but if the Fed didn't have interest rates down at 1%, none of these products could have been created.
Right.
That's where they came from. The whole subprime mortgage market was the result of the teaser rate, courtesy of the Fed, and Fannie and Freddie Mac being the biggest buyers of this crap. They bought up all the paper.
Right.
It was Fannie and Freddie that created the market that Wall Street was feeding. So if you took government out of the mix, if you got rid of Fannie and Freddie and the FHA, and if we had sound money and a market-set interest rate, the housing bubble never got created. There was no subprime. None of these things would have been structured.
Last question in response. Then what? Okay, fair enough. But why?
Well, how did I predict it in advance? I knew it all was going to happen and warned about it because I understood it.
And I watched him all the time. He did. Why did they hide all of this stuff off their balance sheets, the banks? I mean, that's got to be. You got to agree that we should have open balance sheets, right?
A lot of this stuff was on the balance
Derivative
sheets,
markets
but everybody assumed that real estate prices would never go down. It was bad data going in.
Do you think
they didn't think it was possible to lose all this money?
Do you think that the accounting should be out in the open? All these banks' books should be clear
I
and
think
open and in the light?
Well, what I want to do is that should be between the banks and their shareholders or their depositors. I want to get the government out of banking. I
agree.
Get rid of government guaranteed bank accounts.
We were just
Let's have a
talking
free
about that.
market.
The shareholders would be a lot less inclined to buy.
And the bondholders and the
Bank of America
depositors.
if they knew their book.
The depositors wouldn't put money in banks that were taking reckless risks because they wouldn't want to lose their money.
Right.
So let's have banks compete for safety. They don't do that now.
Thank you.
Yes, we should remove all the capital gains and taxes from gold and silver so people can. Well, we should remove the tax. Ron Paul's got it right. We got to get rid of the taxes on gold and silver so that we can compete with the Federal Reserve note. But it would be better if we could just go back on a gold standard and have real money.
Should Google be able to create their own currency and we use it in exchange?
Hey, if you want to. Yeah. All right, now I got to get going too because I got an appointment.
Oh no, I was just following up. So it sounds like you're against all regulation in the banking industry, as far as like government, and you don't think that some regulation.
I want free market regulation, private sector regulation. It works.
I mean, you make an argument that higher regulation could have, possibly prevented it.
No, well, look, the problem was the government was too involved. But are you saying if the government is going to ensure?
I mean, just more regulation on derivatives.
No, there was no. What with the Fed doing what they were doing, with Fannie and Freddie doing what they were doing, it was inevitable.
Well, I mean, maybe you'd be regulating that market more. But I mean, we had continually lowered and lowered regulations, and we got.
No, we weren't continually lowering them. We weren't doing that. We were layering more and more regulations. I work in the financial industry.
Your commercial banking was like over. You were starting to open up those like Chinese walls.
But there was more. They were adding more regulations than they were eliminating. The net effect was a higher regulated market. But if you're going to insure the bank deposits, then you have to regulate what the banks do. So I'm all for regulation if you make the mistake of insuring the deposits. But if you're smart enough not to insure the deposits, you don't need the government regulation because then you have market regulation that is far more effective. But anyway, we got to get going because I know I got to.
Well, I hope you'll come down here and see the show.
Now, one can understand why black people don't start businesses, why black people have an innate, disorganized, that's why. These are the people that we listen to. These are the individuals that we grasp for ideology from. They are. We don't say it, but that's what we get our shit from. A lot of this shit I done heard black people say. 99% of it. And you saw a couple of them come in there. The black kid coming there screaming at the guy, trying to get him to do an investment. How stupid can you be? But this is what is typical within our community. Most of this shit they were saying is what we say. Social justice warriors and shit. But as you saw when they tried to hash that shit out and get them to really speak to specifics, they didn't really have no real answers, substantive answers. That's what I meant, man. Good night. And as far as education, it's pretty simple, man. If you go to a university and that university doesn't allow for spending, like getting grants and student loans and things like that, they're going to charge you a reasonable rate, like a cheap rate for that education. Ron Paul said when he went to college, he literally graduated debt-free because he worked through high school and paid it off a part-time job. Now think about that for a second. A part-time job, let's say you make $200 a week. Out of that, you can pay your tuition because the government fucked it up. This shit is so clear. Government fucks up. It's just that simple, man. But anyway, now I'm going to say good night, man. Bye.